The girl before him actually wanted to have his children. Just now, the male lead slowly opened his eyes in bed. What met his eyes was a girl with flowing long hair. Chu Qing was startled. He couldn't help but let out a scream. Then he pushed the beauty away. He quickly jumped out of bed. The girl looked somewhat regretful. A moment later, she came to the bedside and teased. Has the effect worn off so quickly? Hey, never mind. A living person would be much more interesting. Chu Qing stared at her, frozen in place. Damn it, I actually reincarnated. Then, a flood of information poured into his mind. It turned out that 300 years ago, he accidentally entered the cultivation world because of his playful nature. From then on, he embarked on his cultivation journey. For 300 years, he ate the morning mist and drank the evening moonlight. He used the sword as his name. He was known by his sword. He diligently cultivated the way of the sword, unrivaled in the world. Yet, he still faced the tribulation of ascension. But he never expected that he did not ascend to immortality. Instead, he returned to his high school days. At the age of 17, when he came to his senses, Chu Qing stared blankly. He looked at the girl on the bed, confused. The girl patted the quilt beneath her and said, "Come here, baby, don't be shy." Chu Qing hurriedly grabbed her clothes and put them on upon hearing this. "It seems we had a misunderstanding. I have something to do. I'll leave first." Trying to leave, the girl stood up immediately. While walking towards him slowly, she said lightly, "Don't you go out and find out. When have I, Yi Chensi, ever been stood up? Besides, that I would take a liking to you, is your good fortune." Chu Qing, however, completely ignored her. He put on his bathrobe and turned to leave. Yi Chensi frowned upon seeing this, her expression slightly displeased. Then, her slender, jade-like arm reached out to grab Chu Qing. As soon as she was grabbed, Chu Qing's expression changed drastically. Such great strength. Then, instinctively, he turned and used his left hand to seize Yi Chensi's arm. With a sudden burst of force, he broke free while countering Yi Chensi. Oh! Yi Chensi was somewhat surprised. Then, she suddenly increased her strength. This body has no internal energy. Chu Qing's expression changed drastically. He was immediately sent flying by the force. Fortunately, with the skills from his past life, he was able to divert some of the force. My school uniform. He turned his head to look at the school uniform on the clothes rack. Without a second thought, he picked up the uniform. Then he turned and opened the door, escaping. Seeing this, Yi Chensi didn't chase after him. Instead, she lit a cigarette. She smiled calmly while smoking. Interesting. He actually managed to dodge my opening the mountain hand. But let's see where you can run to. You big fool. I've got you now. This young man is extraordinary. He accidentally entered the immortal cultivation world. In just 300 years, he became an unparalleled Sword Immortal. However, an accident occurred during his ascension. A space-time rift sent him back to his younger days. But just after waking up, Qi was confronted by a young girl's forceful advance. Fortunately, with the martial arts skills from his past life, he managed to temporarily escape the girl's clutches. At this moment, Chu Qing, who had just escaped from the hotel, stood dazed on the street, gazing at the familiar tall buildings in front of him. After a moment, he was overjoyed and in tears. It's been 300 years. I'm finally back, Dad. Mom. I can finally see you both again. At this moment, a quarrel interrupted his thoughts. He turned around and found a couple arguing. The man was being submissive and seemed to be crying. The woman looked very impatient. You men are such a hassle. It's just a bag, isn't it? I'll buy it for you. The boy smiled upon hearing this. He linked his arm through the woman's. My dear, you're so kind. Watching their departing backs, Chu Qing felt a chill sweep over his entire body. Get out of the way. At that moment, a large hand grabbed him and pulled him aside. Chu Qing looked up. An extremely strong woman stared at him with a puzzled expression. She then glanced at the construction site not far away. The taxi driver and the traffic controllers. They were all women. Chu Qing's expression showed confusion and disbelief. To figure this out, he went to the library. He finally discovered the truth in a comprehensive history book. It turned out that during the spring and autumn period, a great calamity suddenly struck. It changed women's physiques. Women became more intelligent, stronger than ever. And that year, a woman named Kong Imo emerged as a remarkable figure. She proposed Confucian ideas that revered women over men. Imperial power was passed to princesses instead of princes. Women pursuing men, women approaching men, women confessing their feelings to men, were all perfectly normal phenomena. But when a man has an affair, he's often criticized. Until the 21st century, under the impact of modern enlightenment, the idea of female superiority and male inferiority began to change. However, the mentality of valuing women over men still exists. This is just absurd. It's one thing for women to be superior to men, but now men actually have to marry women. At this moment, Chu Qing's face turned extremely ugly. The world has become like this. I don't even know if my home still exists. Relying on the memory in his mind, he returned to his neighborhood. Standing in front of the gate, he felt a little uneasy. He swallowed hard a few times. He reached out and shakily opened the door. What greeted his eyes was a middle-aged man cleaning. The face that appeared countless times in his dreams made Chu Qing uncontrollably overjoyed. "Dad!" He shouted and rushed towards his father, Lin Yuantu. Lin Yuantu looked at him strangely after pushing him away slightly. "Didn't you say you were going to a classmate's house, and would be back late?" While speaking, he stepped forward and sniffed. His expression instantly changed. The scent of perfume. His expression grew serious as he began scolding Chu Qing. "Did you go to a female classmate's house? How many times have I told you? A handsome boy like you is very vulnerable when you're out there. Even if you're classmates, you still can't let your guard down. Look at the news these days. Young boys trust their female classmates too easily, and get secretly filmed. How will they face the world after that?" Seeing Chu Qing's dumbfounded expression, Lin Yuantu continued in a low, heavy voice. "Your sister spends all her time messing around outside. She barely managed to get into a third-rate university. Now that she's graduated, she still can't find a job. Your mom and I have given up on her. We're just hoping you can get into a top university and have a future. You're still young. Don't let those bad women deceive you." Chu Qing, feeling embarrassed, quickly interrupted him. "Dad, I know. You don't need to worry about me. Where's Mom? Your mother is still outside doing business. Business is tough these days. It's been hard on her. This girl is so strong. She's not sleeping late at night. She's actually hiding in her room watching a handsome guy's live stream. Oh, little brother, you're so naughty. Hurry up and take off your underwear. Ah, you want me to give you a gift? A rocket. This is no problem." The girl's cheeks were flushed. One hand was placed below. The piles of tissues beside the computer further indicated that a fierce battle had just taken place here. Chu Qing, who had just opened the door behind her, was stunned. Carefully closing it again, he fell silent. This was still the gentle and quiet girl from his memory. Like a lady, older sister. At this moment, Chi's face was burning. His heart was racing like 1,000 galloping horses. After calming himself down, he shouted loudly, "Sis! Dinner's ready." Chu Xiao was startled, jumping straight out of her chair. After a moment of panic, she said irritably, "Got it." About 5 minutes later, Chu Xiao walked out with a lingering charm, her seductive allure on full display. Chu Qing looked at her, with an expression that suggested she wasn't quite satisfied, then teased her on purpose. "Sis, you weren't watching videos in there, were you?" Chu Xiao glanced over without saying a word. "TCH, what's so great about it? Nowadays, it's all about live streaming real people. Pfft. That little handsome guy just now had an amazing body. Hey, what do I even need to tell you, little boy?" After speaking, she swayed her waist, turning to walk towards the bathroom with a little tune. Heh. Chu Qing looked at her back with great disdain. After dinner, when Chu Qing was talking to his father, Chu Xiao walked over in a seductive outfit and said, "I'm meeting friends. I'll be back later, and Dad, give me a few blocks." Lin Yuantu, who was peeling an apple, paused. He frowned and asked, "What are you planning to do?" Chu Xiao replied calmly, "I'm planning to do business with a friend. I can't just eat and drink by myself." Lin Yuantu was speechless. While throwing the mouthguard at her, he said with a heart full of sorrow, "Just keep doing whatever you want. If you were half as obedient as your brother, your mom and I wouldn't have to worry." After getting it, Chuyu looked smug. "Why should I be like him? He can still marry a woman with a good reputation, but I have to fight for everything on my own. After you acknowledge it, you and Mom will still have to rely on me to support you. Look at that useless behavior from NV Fan." Lin Yuantu was so angry, he kept complaining. Save some money for me. Your mom's situation isn't easy. It's all because of you. After Chu Xiao left, Chu Qing looked expectantly. Dad, you just let her go like that. Lin Yuantu looked at him with an expression of frustration. What else can I do? Your sister is a girl. Am I supposed to tie her up at home like you? A woman should go out and explore. But your sister, this. Forget it. As long as she doesn't cause trouble. Chu Qing was completely speechless. This damn world of female empowerment. Just as the two were talking, Chu Qing's mother, Chu Tiannan, wearily opened the door. Mom! Chu Qing shouted and immediately rushed over to hug her. Chu Tiannan had a tired expression. What's going on? Is she acting spoiled with mom again? Is it because she's running low on pocket money? She just takes out a few hundred yuan and stuffs it into Chu Qing's hands. Chu Qing stares blankly at one, stunned. In the past life, mom was strict as hell. She had to beg her just to get $10 for a game. Even going to an internet cafe to play games was a hassle. Now take it, I've packed it for you. Mom. I don't want it. Knowing the family is not well off, Chu Qing refused. Chu Tiannan smiled with relief. Silly kid. Take it if I give it to you. Our family is a bit strapped right now. It shouldn't have caused you any grievance. What about Chu Xiao? He followed up and asked. Lin Yuantu said angrily. Don't mention it. He's out gallivanting again. Chu Tiannan looked unconcerned. Let him gallivant. That's how I hooked you up back then. After saying that domineeringly, she embraced Lin Yuantu. Looking at my dad, who was excitedly serving tea and ice to my mom. Chu Qing's face was full of black lines. WTF. Although I know it's a matriarchal world, but my parents acting like this is simply unacceptable. Will I become like that someday? Then, Zi's face appeared in my mind. Chu Qing felt a surge of disgust. No, it's too disgusting. This young man is a bit miserable. He just reincarnated into a world where women are dominant and men are subservient, and almost got forcibly raped by a girl. Afterward, I even witnessed my sister's ridiculous actions with my own eyes. At this moment, I looked at my dad, who was acting like a little bird dependent on my mom. The male lead, Chu Qing, sighed silently and greeted them. Then he returned to his room. Looking at the neat and tidy room, Chu Qing was speechless. This is my damn room. Then he looked at himself in the mirror. Chu Qing remained silent. In this world where feminism reigns, every family desires to have daughters. After thousands of years of development, it has resulted in an extremely skewed male-to-female ratio. Hundreds of millions of women live their lives single, because women must have a car and a house to get married. What about men? As long as he's clean-cut and handsome. Shaking his head, Chu Qing opened the desk drawer. Looking at the drawer full of love letters, Chu Qing was shocked again. I'm actually still the school flower of Tianjin No. 2 High School, the marriage object countless women dream of. Forget it. Let's just make the best of it. He gave a wry smile. Chu Qing sat on the bed, legs crossed. His eyes were half closed. He prepared to begin cultivating his past life's cultivation techniques. A moment later, a look of surprise appeared on his face. The spiritual energy in this world is so dense. With this energy, I can definitely regain my cultivation. I will open the time-space portal again, and return to that normal world. Let this matriarchal world go to hell. Soon, it was midnight. Chu Qing, who had finished her cultivation, slowly opened her eyes. After practicing the extreme Tao free and easy skill, my 5 senses and 6 perceptions will be sharper. Why don't I try it? Muttering to himself, he infused his ears with spiritual energy. Soon, he heard 2 breaths coming from his parents' room. Listening again to the next room, it was quiet. My older sister hasn't come home yet. Chu Qing was momentarily stunned, then quickly realized. In this world, men and women are reversed. It's not surprising for women to stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning, or even pull an all-nighter. Nothing unusual about that. Just as she was thinking, the phone on the table suddenly rang. Older sister. After answering the call, Chu Qing was a bit surprised. Xiao Qing. Chu Xiao's anxious voice came through. She seemed a little flustered. Listen to me first. Something happened to me. Don't tell mom and dad. Don't report it either. What happened? Chu Qing's expression changed drastically. Chu Xiao didn't answer, but continued. Under the bed in my room. There's a dark-colored bag. Bring it to me immediately. I'm at the Crescent Bar on Ting High Street. Before she finished speaking, a woman snatched the phone and said, "Kid, if you want your sister to be safe, then bring me that bag right away, box 302. After saying that, without waiting for Chu Qing to respond, the call was abruptly ended. Chu Qing frowned, remaining silent. A moment later, he strapped on a dark black suitcase, and jumped directly out of the 5th-floor window. "No one can touch my family," muttering to himself. His figure transformed into a shadow, quickly disappearing into the night. These little hooligans are crazy. They actually want to engage in a fierce battle with the male lead. Just now, the male lead arrived at his destination, following the address his sister gave him. "Let's see if my older sister is unharmed." Chu Qing breathed a sigh of relief and tossed his luggage onto the table. "I brought the things. Release my sister." "Oh." The woman stood up and walked towards Chu Qing with shining eyes. "He's quite a handsome young man. He's much more handsome in person than in the photo. Look at this tender little face. She's only a teenager." Chu Qing felt a sudden chill. "It's none of your business." Hee hee. The woman suppressed her anger. She then turned to the luggage bag on the table. She opened the zipper. A "see" sound, revealing stacks of cash inside. "Ah!" The restrained Chu Xiao let out a startled cry. "Why is it, Q?" Chu Qing looked at her, a bit helpless. "You're the only one who doesn't know what's in the bag." Chu Xiao, who had just realized, turned pale. "Sister Zhou, I don't know if this is your idea. Xiao Lin just told me that it was her personal belongings, and asked me to keep it for her for a while." "Shut up," the woman said with a soft scold. "You don't have the guts to slander me. Lin Jivan actually dared to steal from me in my own turf. I think you're tired of living. Take advantage of the fact that I'm not angry yet. Get the hell out of here." "Thank you, Sister Zhou." Chu Xiao looked scared. She grabbed Chu Qing and was about to leave. However, just as they turned around, the woman shouted angrily, "Wait a minute. Who let him go?" Chu Xiao's face changed drastically. "It's not that easy to escape, after all." "Heh." The woman let out a cold laugh. "Your brother is quite handsome. I like him. He stays, you leave." Chu Xiao hurriedly protected Chu Qing. "No one is allowed to touch my brother. Sister Zhou, this is a matter between women. Don't drag men into it. My brother is still young. Leave him alone." The woman laughed and sat on the sofa, saying, "Okay, I can let him go. Your brother leaves. You stay, but you should think carefully. If your brother stays, it'll just take a little more effort. You stay. Don't blame me when the time comes." Sure hadn't finished speaking before being interrupted by Chu Xiao. "I'll stay. Finish what you're saying." She turned around and said tremulously, "Xiao Qing, you go home first. I'll be home soon. Behave. You're a boy. It's not safe here. I'll fix the trouble I caused. I'll take care of it." Hearing this, Chu Qing shook his head and pushed her away. "Sis, do you think your little brother is that reckless and angry?" After he finished speaking, he stepped on the teacup. He put his hands in his pockets and said coldly, "You, an old woman, dare to ask me to stay, what?" The woman's subordinates were shocked by this statement. The woman stood up, revealing a gloomy smile. "You little brat. You've made up your mind, huh? Let me tell you something. I'll roast you on the bed later. Feed you a whole box of Viagra." But before she could finish her sentence, Chu Qing slapped her hard across the face. "Little brother." Chu Xiao was stunned. She covered her mouth in disbelief. And the woman was completely enraged. She raised her fist and swung it. With a loud bang, Chu Qing didn't dodge and met her punch head-on. The woman was instantly knocked back several steps. Chu Qing was somewhat surprised. Interesting. The strength of women in this world really is something. "Get him. Grab him." The frantic woman let out a loud roar. Chu Qing's lips curled up slightly, without even glancing. Just brute force. Before the opponent's attack could reach him, he had already jumped up to above their heads. With one strike of the mouth dragon drill, they screamed in agony, spitting blood. Once everything was over, Chu Qing clapped his hands and was about to leave with Chu Xiao. However, just as he turned around, a crisp cracking sound rang out. The woman, holding a weapon, had a dark expression. "Stop. If you dare take another step, don't blame me for being rude." "No." Chu Xiao quickly stepped in front of Chu Qing. "Sister Zhou, my younger brother doesn't know any better. Please forgive him." "Damn bitch." The woman shouted angrily. "If you say another word, I'll sell you to the mountainous region." Chu Qing narrowed his eyes upon hearing this. "If you seek your own demise, I will grant you your wish. Just then, the private room door was suddenly opened. A woman's voice immediately followed. Ha! Such a lively scene. Why didn't you call me? This girl is too ruthless. She's practically a female demon. She directly abducts the handsome, fair-faced boy. She knocks him unconscious and is about to force herself on him. Luckily, the boy is a reincarnated person. He escapes at a crucial moment. Not long after, the two meet again. The girl boldly announced that the boy was her 36th boyfriend. Just now, Chu Qing was about to make a move on the woman who wanted to cheat at cards. When a woman in a red cheongsam walked in, the woman's face lit up when she saw Chu Qing. Chu Qing, however, was rather dumbfounded. This woman is actually trying to forcefully take control of the situation. Yi Chenxi. What are you doing here? Yi Chenxi chuckled. Of course, I'm here. Then, she turned to the woman and said, Zhou Yun. This guy was the one I liked first. None of your business. Get lost. Zhou Yun's face turned pale with anger. Yi Fengpa. Do you want to break the rules? Break the rules. Yi Chenxi's eyes went cold. She gave instructions to the subordinates behind her. Take the person away. Cut off their arms and legs and throw them on the street. Zhou Yun was instantly frightened and collapsed to the ground. Yi Fengpa, no. Boss Yi, I was wrong. Yi Chenxi, seeing her admit her mistake, said calmly, one arm, one leg. Then, with a cheerful smile, she looked at Chu Qing. Chu Qing, this is the gift I got you. Do you like it? Chu Qing furrowed his brows and said, mind your own business. Ah, you're the first man who's ever dared to speak to me like that. Yi Chenxi looked at Chu Qing with a surprised gaze, scanning him up and down. She then extended her finger and gently tapped his chin, continuing to speak. I've made up my mind. You are going to be my 36th boyfriend. Chu Qing pushed her hand away and coldly rejected her. Sorry, I'm not interested in you. Besides, if you hadn't interfered, I would have solved it already. Yi Chenxi looked at him disdainfully. With your small build, do you think you can take on Zhou Yun? Chu Qing smiled meaningfully when he heard that. You don't believe me? Do you dare to try and compete with me? Chu Xiao hurriedly pulled him and whispered, little brother, comparing with the female demon. Are you crazy? Yi Chenxi was speechless. How do you want to compare? Chu Qing said indifferently after hearing this. Skill. If you lose, you can't bother me again. Yi Chenxi smiled. A hint of sarcasm appeared. You want to compete with me in strength? Don't forget, you're a man. Her expression annoyed Chu Qing. What? Are you too scared to compete? Yi Chenxi laughed heartily. There is nothing I, Yi Chenxi, wouldn't dare to do. But I do have one condition. If I win, you'll be my boyfriend. Deal. Chu Qingquang stared at her, unflinching. Before long, news of the competition spread like wildfire. This little boy wants to compete in strength with our big sister. It's simply ridiculous. I'm not bragging. A delicate little guy like him. I could swallow him whole, leaving nothing behind. Men are made of water. Women are made of iron. But I'm different. Little brother, I made this especially for you. Chu Qing on stage listened to the surrounding discussions, feeling somewhat speechless. The women in this world are truly bold. At this time, Yi Chenxi said confidently, little Chu Qing, I will let you deeply feel the gap between men and women, a chasm like heaven and earth. Start. As the referee's voice faded, the match between the two officially began. To prevent the girl from continuing to harass him, the boy made a move against her. Start. At the referee's command, the two began to struggle. Yi Chenxi looked at Chu Qing with undisguised disdain. Chu Qing, however, was somewhat surprised. Such great strength. The women of this world. Truly extraordinary. You are indeed powerful, but I'm no ordinary man either. He spoke, a roar echoing in his heart. A stream of energy surged into the dantian and quickly flowed into the arm. Before Yi Chenxi could react, there was a thud. Her arm was pinned down by Chu Qing. Looking at Yi Chenxi's face full of disbelief, Chu Qing stood up and said, I win. Don't forget about our bet. After saying that, he's going to take my older sister away from here. At this time, everyone in the J-bar gasped. Wow, that kind of strength. Is it really something a boy can do? I know. That little brother definitely doesn't have a girlfriend. He has what's known as legendary Qilin arms. Little brother, come on. Let's have some fun. Looking at the scene below the stage, Yi Chenxi exuded an aura that finally quieted these crazy women. At this moment, a subordinate approached and said, "Young miss, should I go bring that guy here?" Yi Chenxi slapped her hard upon hearing that. "Get lost. I'm not a sore loser." She stood up and said to Chu Qing, "Chu Qing, you surprised me, but don't forget, you're a man. It is destined to rely on the strong wings of our own family." Chu Qing was displeased upon hearing this. "Who says men have to rely on women? We have hands and feet. We can build our own future." Ha! Yi Chenxi smiled lightly. "From ancient times to the present, you men rely on us women for protection. Women are the pillars of the world. It is women who have driven social change and development. The rise and fall of the world rests on women's shoulders. Men, are only fit to stay home and take care of children. That is." The audience nodded in agreement. "It is we women who make the main contribution to society." Chu Qing turned and strode forward. She looked straight at Yi Chenxi. She said word by word, "Then, what about this? I only know. Heaven's way is strong and constant. Therefore the superior man strives for self-improvement without ceasing. I also know. Why shouldn't a man carry a wu hook and conquer 50 states beyond the passes? I know even more. That it's good to be drunk in a beautiful woman's lap. Wake up, human rights." Chu Qing finished speaking and directly turned around, leaving with his sister. The group of women present were left stunned by his words. Yi Chenxi, on the other hand, looked at him with a smile. One of his subordinates glanced at her and said, "Miss, this." Yi Chenxi, without looking back, said, "Do you find it unbelievable too? Such a wild man. He's just the type Yi Chenxi, like." Chu Qing, "Don't even think about escaping." The subordinate shakes his head and continues, "Miss, it's that they're urging you to go home early. You also know. Over at home." Yi Chenxi directly interrupted and said, "Go back. Nonsense. I just came out to have fun for 2 days. And also, stop calling me miss. My sister is still alive. This girl's mentality is a bit too big. One moment she's being threatened by a group of female thugs to accompany them. The next she's watching a handsome guy's live stream at home. Just now, the male lead left J Bar with his rescued sister. On the way, his sister, Chu Xiao, walked coyly. Younger brother, about what happened tonight. Don't tell mom and dad. Okay? Impossible. Chu Qing said coldly, "If I weren't here tonight, could you have come out of the bar unscathed?" Chu Xiao angrily jumped up and said fiercely, "You brat. I'm your sister. Are you planning to use this to threaten me?" However, Chu Qing directly ignored her. Seeing that the emotional plea wasn't working, Chu Xiao thought for a moment and said, "Actually, Yi Chenxi is quite a good person. He's the heir to the Shigong underground forces. If you marry her, I'll benefit from it." Chu Qing was speechless. She wanted to shove her back into the hands of those thugs. "Shut up, say another word, and I'll tell mom and dad when I get back." "Okay." Chu Xiao responded with a sound and quickly covered her mouth. Soon, the two of them returned home. Chu Qing returned to his room. He began to practice the extreme path-free technique. It was unclear how much time passed. His ears twitched slightly. A flow of spiritual energy began to drift through the house. When he reached his parents' room, he found they had already fallen asleep. "I came to my older sister's room, only to hear, 'Little brother, quickly take off your pants. I can't wait any longer. Hurry up, I'll give you a plane, as a gift/tip. Then followed a series of rapid breaths. Chu Qing trembled. He immediately exited his meditative state. This Chu Xiao just got into trouble and came home, yet she still has the energy to watch a live stream. Ugh. My sister in the original world is so much better. The next day, Tianjin No. 1 school. Chu Qing just arrived at the school gate. She heard a voice calling her from behind. She turned around to look. It turns out to be an old acquaintance. Soon, the chubby guy walked over with a flamboyant stride. Chu Qing was stunned by the scene. This is Lin Dong. Out of breath, Lin Dong grabbed his hand and said, "Where were you yesterday? I tried calling you, but you didn't answer." Chu Qing snapped back to reality, his face turning pale as he quickly pulled his hand away. Lin Dong was a bit confused. "Why are you acting so strange?" Chu Qing quickly interrupted and said, It's nothing. I have something to do. I'll leave first." I'm still muttering to myself. This sissy isn't my good buddy, Lin Dong, at all. Arriving in the classroom and seeing those boys looking like women, Chu Qing directly lay down on the desk. choosing to go on a date with Zhou Gong's daughter. At this time, Chu Qing lifted his head, somewhat puzzled. Chu Qing, are you feeling unwell? It's Song Chaoran, the beautiful class monitor. Chu Qing scratched his head, saying he was fine. He just hadn't eaten breakfast and was a little hungry. Song Chaoran, hearing this, said with a blushing face, I have some bread here. Why don't you have some? The college entrance examination is coming. You should take better care of yourself. At that moment, a sharp voice was heard. Oh, you're quite eager to please, aren't you? Maybe you should take a look at yourself first. Then, a girl with a big ant face walked over slowly. She forcefully shoved Song Chaoran aside, and then caught Chu Qing and asked, Chu Qingqing, did you read the love letter your sister gave you yesterday? Have you read it? The mountain girl drugged the male lead and tried to force herself on him. It was actually a conspiracy. Just now, when the beautiful class monitor was teasing Chu Qing, a girl with an old woman's face pushed the class monitor aside and caught Chu Qing. Get lost. Chu Qing angrily kicked her away. A surge of energy suddenly erupted from her body. The middle-aged woman, who had fallen to the ground, was furious, her face reddening with anger. She got up and reached out to grab Chu Qing. You're just a little boy. Do you think you can turn things around? Just as her fist was about to strike Chu Qing, a loud shout suddenly rang out. The middle-aged woman's face froze, and she stood motionless. Immediately afterwards, a boy with a refined face and somewhat scholarly air stepped into the classroom. After seeing who it was, the girl with a stern face shouted, Yi Mao, you're going to mind your own business. Yi Mao glanced at her and said indifferently, before I lose my temper, you'd better get out. The girl with the matronly face was startled. She ran out while shouting, don't think you can act so arrogant just because your sister is Yi Chenxi. You can't be so arrogant. Yi Mao ignored her. Instead, he came before Chu Qing and said apologetically, Brother Chu Qing, I need to talk to you. Can you come out for a moment? Sure. Chu Qing nodded when he heard this. The two of them left the classroom and came to a secluded area. Yi Mao said with a guilty expression on his face, I really apologize for yesterday. I didn't find out until later that you were taken by my sister Xian. I went to look for you with some people afterwards. I only just found out you'd already escaped. It turns out it was the day before. Chu Qing accepted an invitation to visit Lin Mao's home. As he was leaving, Lin Mao's sister, Yi Chenxi, volunteered to drive him home. On the way home, Yi Chenxi suddenly handed him a bottle of water that had been drugged. There's nothing much to drink in the car. You can make do for a bit. Once we get there, I'll treat you to something nice to drink. Upon hearing this, Chu Qing didn't think much and started drinking. This led to the later events where Yi Chenxi wanted to force herself onto Chu Qing. At this moment, Lin Mao, with tears in his eyes, said again, I really feel guilty. What if you were hurt by my sister? Chu Qing quickly patted him and comforted him. It's fine now. Don't think too much about it. Go home. In the blink of an eye, it was already afternoon. Chu Qing had just left school when a sports car stopped beside him. Yi Chenxi tapped on the car door and smiled. Get in the car. Why should I get in? Chu Qing was annoyed. She was still cursing inwardly. Why won't this woman just go away? Yi Chenxi smiled slightly. Consider your family's situation. You should know what you're doing. Oh. Chu Qing narrowed his eyes upon hearing this, a wicked smile playing at the corner of his lips. He then opened the door and directly sat in the passenger seat. Yi Chenxi nodded in satisfaction. That's more like it. My wild man. You made a mistake today, Chu Qing said with a smile. You can come to me, but you shouldn't threaten me with my family. Yi Chenxi smiled calmly after hearing this. What if it wasn't a threat? Whether it was a threat or not, you shouldn't have mentioned him. Chu Qing finished speaking and tapped the ornament in front of him. The next moment, there was a loud bang. The ornament was instantly shattered by the explosion. Yi Chenxi was a little surprised. She stared blankly at the scene. Chu Qing then flipped over and pinned her beneath him. You really should see for yourself what a threat truly is. Inside a sports car worth over 100 million, Xiaoyan actually pinned the girl beneath him. The boy's wicked smile mesmerized the girl. She murmured, I didn't threaten you. I said I could help you and your family. She stared at two large grapes, feeling comfortable as she squinted her eyes. Are you pitying me? Looking at Chu Qing, who's like a hooligan, Yi Chenxi smiled. No, since you don't like those underhanded tactics, Then I'll pursue you openly and honestly. Is that alright? Chu Qing let go of her hand upon hearing this, turned around, and sat back down, saying, okay, let's start with a friendship. Right. I'm very happy to be with you, but I have to be on top. Alright, let's drive to dinner. This guy. Yi Chenxi's gaze flickered, and an unusual expression appeared in her eyes. Do you practice ancient martial arts? Chu Qing's heart warmed slightly as he shrugged his hands. Ancient martial arts? Of course not. Aren't men not able to practice in this world? Yi Chenxi chuckled softly. You really have thick skin. Actually, I investigated your family and found no connection to ancient martial arts. But if there's something you don't want to talk about, I won't ask further. At that moment, Chu Qing's pupils suddenly contracted. Be careful. The next second, a small cargo truck came straight at them. With a loud bang. Yi Chenxi didn't have time to react before being hit. With a loud bang, Yi Chenxi's car was directly sent flying, rolling several times on the ground before stopping not far away. Cough, cough. Chu Qing, are you alright? Yi Chenxi opened her eyes and immediately looked for Chu Qing, but she found nothing. Because Chu Qing blocked in front of her the moment B exploded. It was the fifth one. Chu Qing let out a muffled grunt. Yi Chenxi suddenly felt something warm on Chu Qing's back. It seemed like liquid was flowing down. She pulled her hand out to check. Her hand was covered in bright red blood. Chu Qing, you're injured. Yi Chenxi suddenly panicked. Her mind was in chaos. Chu Qing ignored her and immediately pulled her out of the car. Then, with a punch, he blasted open the car door. Get out first. As he spoke, he jumped out of the car. At that moment, a metal rod pierced into Chu Qing's back. Yi Chenxi said worriedly, your injury is serious. Hurry. Let's go to the hospital. Go to which hospital? Do you think it's over? Chu Qing stared ahead, his expression serious. At this moment, 5 or 6 tall women jumped down from the truck. They were holding weapons and slowly walking towards the two, grinning. Yi Chenxi hurriedly shielded Chu Qing behind her. Dare to come at me, and you even hurt my man. I think you're tired of living. The other side didn't respond, but charged straight at them. A fierce battle broke out between them. Meanwhile, a woman with a weapon charged at Chu Qing. She was underestimated again. He mocked himself inwardly. A cold glint appeared in Chu Qing's eyes. The spiritual energy in his dantian instantly surged into his fist. After the woman approached him, he struck directly at her lower abdomen. The woman let out a muffled groan and spat out blood. She crashed heavily to the ground. Over here, although Yi Chenxi had practiced ancient martial arts, but he's a little overwhelmed by the crowd surrounding them. Chu Qing watches this scene. He takes Nu Jio's weapon. The next moment, golden sword auras appear behind Chu Qing. He becomes like a golden stream of light, charging towards the mortals attacking Yi Chenxi. A whooshing sound is heard. 2 women are instantly knocked out of the battle. The other 2 strong women's eyes were full of shock. Seeing this, Yi Chenxi raised her hand and took a deep breath. With a soft bang, the great tablet hand had already struck out. Looking at the several people who had been knocked unconscious, Yi Chenxi clapped her hands. Looking at Chu Qing, she exclaimed in surprise. You can do it, Chu Qing said as he discarded his weapon. I've left some alive. The rest is up to you. Yi Chenxi's expression turned serious. Good. I'll have someone take care of it. If it weren't for you, I might have been done for. Chu Qing rubbed his shoulders and said, it looks like we won't be able to eat dinner today. I'll treat you another time. It's too late to go home. My dad will be worried. However, at that moment, Yi Chenxi's phone suddenly rang. The girl who once forcefully kissed the male lead. Now she was crying while lying on the male lead. Just after the 2 of them knocked out the attackers, Yi Chenxi's phone suddenly rang. Hello. Yi Chenxi answered the phone while hiding it from Chu Qing. What? Yi Chenxi's voice was filled with disbelief. What happened? Chu Qing looked at Yi Chenxi's face, which suddenly turned pale. Forget it. Whatever happened has nothing to do with me. It's not something I, a mere student, can interfere with. Chu Qing shook her head, preparing to leave, but just as he was about to turn around, Yi Chenxi suddenly grabbed him. Her eyes started to redden. Chu Qing, please don't go. My mom has been C5 dead. She's being rescued right now by the family. How could this happen? Chu Qing pondered for a moment and said, you and your mother being targeted by 7S simultaneously. It's definitely no coincidence. If both of you were to be harmed, the Tianjin underworld would be reshuffled. At this moment, Yi Chenxi was already flustered. If my mother falls, those who covet our family's power, Auntie Zhang will definitely jump out. What should I do? Chu Qing patted her shoulder and said, "Don't worry, I'll go with you. Your family depends on you now. You must cheer up." Yi Chenxi looked up at him, stunned by his words. Suddenly, she reached out and hugged Jia Chuqing tightly, then burst into tears. In this moment of crisis, she suddenly felt she could rely on someone. This feeling intoxicated her. Night fell. Outside the Yi family villa, Yi Chenxi and Chu Qing, having changed their clothes, finally arrived. A woman in black saw them arrive. She quickly went up to greet her. "Miss, you're finally back." Yi Chenxi nodded and asked, "How are things at home?" The woman in black shook her head and said, "Miss, please forgive me," Yi Mei said, "unless you arrive here. Otherwise, no one else is allowed in." Yi Chenxi frowned and said, "This treacherous woman." Chu Qing was a little puzzled. "Who is Yi Mei?" "She's my third aunt. She's been doing a lot of shady dealings these years. She's also colluding with other families. But my mom never had actual proof. I didn't expect her to strike first." Furious, Yi Chenxi turned her head and continued speaking. "This is too much. Chu Qing, let's go." However, as they entered the main door, two people blocked their way. "Wait a moment. Who is this man? He can't come in. How dare you block my way?" Yi Chenxi said angrily. "You have some nerve." "I'm a doctor," Chu Qing said flatly. "I'm here to treat Madame Ye's injuries." "Doctor?" The two women burst into laughter. "These days, even men can be doctors. You have a long-standing gynecological problem." Chu Qing chuckled. "And you have poor kidney function." Z is currently taking Chinese medicine, but the effects have not been very good. The two women were shocked. After exchanging a glance, they immediately chose to let him in. "Please come in." But as soon as he entered the front door, two women walked toward him. Yi Mei used a small fan to shield her face. She said with a heartbroken expression, "Chen Shi, thank goodness you came back in time. Otherwise, I really don't know what would have happened." Hearing this, Yi Chenxi's whole body emanated an angry aura, and he shouted, "Yi Mei, where's my mother? I want to see her." Yi Mei chuckled softly. "How rude. Can you just call third aunt by her name? Besides, it's fine for you, but, what's going on with this man? Can any random man just enter the Yi family? He's the doctor I called." Yi Chenxi coldly snorted. "Please move." "Doctor." Yi Mei smiled lightly and said, "I think you brought home this little vixen's wild man, wanting to be a man of our Yi family. He needs some skills. Otherwise, you won't be able to get in. Mayor, go and test the mettle of the man our young miss chose." Yi Mayor, dressed in a red qipao, teased. "Yes, mother. This naturally alluring girl in a qipao is so daring. She actually wants a thrilling showdown with the male lead." Just now, Yi Chenxi brought Chu Qing home to visit her mother. Unexpectedly, they ran into their disagreeable third aunt. Third aunt, Yi Mei, disliked Chu Qing intensely, so she had her daughter, Yi Meyer, teach Chu Qing a lesson. As Yi Meyer approached slowly, the slit of her cheongsam, which reached her thighs, revealed a stunning view. Yi Mei watched the scene with a cold laugh. As long as Mei injures Yi Chenxi's man, she would definitely lose control and take action. Once she takes action, it will go against the clan rules. No one will be able to protect her. At this moment, Yi Meyer tied her hair up and said, "Little brother, if you lose, you have to promise me one thing." "What is it?" Chu Qing also smiled. Yi Meyer said coquettishly, "If I win, I want you to be bedridden for a whole day." Yi Meyer. Yi Chenxi was furious. "You dare to steal my man? I'll cripple you first." She was about to attack. Fortunately, Chu Qing quickly stopped her. Then he gently shook his head and said to Yi Meyer, "I accept." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Meyer strode forward, attacking him. She was preparing to catch him off guard. With a bang, Chu Qing raised his fist, blocking her sneak attack with a counterstrike. "It turns out you were trying to distract me." In the next moment, his left hand formed a fist, and he struck Yi Meyer's abdomen with a direct punch. Yi Meyer spat out a mouthful of blood. The entire body was sent flying out. "Meyer!" Yi Mei cried out in shock, her face changing dramatically. Chu Qing then smiled wickedly. "Do you still want to sleep with me now?" Yi Mei, who was helping Meyer up, said fiercely. Yi Chenxi, let's see what kind of good man you've brought back. Yi Chenxi said with a bit of pride and a touch of arrogance. If you don't pick, my man won't make a move. Chu Qing smiled lightly and said, quickly take your girl for treatment. Otherwise, I can't guarantee there won't be any hidden injuries. Looking at their retreating figures, Yi Mei muttered resentfully. Okay, you win. At this time, a blonde beauty wearing glasses walked towards the two. Yi Chenxi looked at her and quickly called out. Second aunt. The blonde beauty hugged Yi Chenxi. Chenxi, you finally came. Yi Chenxi pushed her away and hurriedly asked. How is my mother? Your mother is fine, but her injuries are too severe. We can't do anything. We can only temporarily preserve her life. At this moment, Chu Qing reminded from the side. Such serious injuries. We can't waste time. We should hurry and take a look. Maybe I can find a solution. The blonde beauty asked him with a puzzled expression. Chenxi, this is. Hearing this, Yi Chenxi replied seriously. Auntie, he is the doctor I invited. We are going to see Mom together. The blonde woman seemed a little unhappy, but she still led them toward the room. As soon as they entered the room, Yi Chenxi rushed toward her mother. Mom, are you alright? It's much better now. Yi Qingmei smiled and looked at Chu Qing, unable to help but ask. Who is this? Chu Qing felt a bit awkward. Auntie, I'm here on Chenxi's behalf, to check your health. He was still secretly grumbling inside. It seems like we just came out for a meal. Why does it feel like we're starting to meet the parents? After scanning him up and down, Yi Qingmei nodded in satisfaction and said, Thank you for your trouble, but I am very clear about my own condition. There's no need for you to worry. Chao Chuan, please take him out and entertain him for now. I have something to say to Chenxi alone. The blonde beauty, Yi Chaochuan, nodded and said, Mr. Chu, please. Mom, let him take a look. He's really amazing. Yi Chenxi hurriedly said, if it weren't for him today, I would have been hurt even if I had been filming. Oh, Yi Qingmei said with some curiosity, since I have gained Chenxi's approval, as her mother, how could I not trust my daughter? To treat the injury, the sickly beauty shed her sick clothes, revealing a stunning and crazy scene. The male lead's nose started bleeding on the spot. Just now, Yi Chenxi brought Chu Qing to meet her mother. Seeing that Yi Qingmei didn't believe she could cure her illness, Chu Qing released his spiritual energy, sensed it, and said, Auntie, if I'm not mistaken, you were ambushed. A palm strike hit you directly on the back. It forced you to channel your inner energy to resist the attack of harmful forces. As a result, your body is now extremely vulnerable. Is that correct? Right? As soon as the words were spoken, Yi Qingmei's expression slightly changed. Then, he said calmly, Chenxi, Chaochuan, you two go out first. I want to talk to this child alone. Yi Chenxi was a little puzzled and wanted to say something, but was pulled out by her second aunt, Yi Chaochuan. After the two left and the door was closed, Yi Qingmei straightened her body and said coldly, Speak, did the Li family send you to scheme? You've been close to Chenxi for 10 years. I'm not from the Li family. Chu Qing shrugged and continued. As for being close, I also need to ask if you're getting close to me for some personal reason. If I hadn't gone to save her after the car accident, she would have been dead by now. Yi Qingmei fell silent for a moment before speaking. Alright, I'll trust you for now. Let's take a closer look at the injury. If you dare to make any small moves, I'll snap your pretty little neck. After saying this, she took off the only garment she was wearing, and casually threw it aside. Chu Qing was completely bewildered. His nose bled profusely. He quickly covered his eyes, cursing inwardly. Hey, don't take your clothes off without a word. I'm still just a kid. After a moment, he adjusted his mindset. He began observing carefully. On Yi Qingmei's left shoulder, there was a large purple bruise. The surrounding flesh had turned purple. Not long after, Chu Qing said seriously, the person who ambushed you, cultivating this type of skill, has a very strong corrosive effect. Although you're using your skill to resist it, but within 5 days, your internal organs will still be destroyed. Yi Qingmei nodded without embarrassment and said, it's about the same as what I understand. Do you have a cure? I can only try. After Chu Qing finished speaking, one hand was placed on the injury on his back. At this moment, golden light radiated from Chu Qing's surroundings. A large amount of spiritual energy began to flow from his hands, slowly entering Yi Qingmei's body. This feeling, Yi Qingmei couldn't help but make a sound in comfort. About 10 minutes later, the wound had shrunk to the size of a needle prick. However, there was a dark, sinister energy that entered Chu Qing's body through the palm of his hand. Chu Qing didn't mind, but instead took a deep breath, and drew the spiritual energy back into his body. He focused on his earlier abilities. Only one thread can be pulled out at a time. Don't rush it. I'm afraid it will backfire, Yi Qingmei said, while still dressed. It's alright. It's much better already. I thought it was hopeless. How would you like our Yi family to thank you? Chu Qing shook his head and smiled. I don't want anything. Chenxi and I are friends. This is something that should be engraved. Yi Qingmei teased upon hearing this. Right. You two are friends. I almost forgot. Chu Qing's face darkened. This sounds a bit awkward. Half an hour later, Yi Chenxi dropped Chu Qing off outside the villa. You're amazing. I didn't expect you to really be able to heal Mom's injuries. After saying that, she reached out her arms, and hugged Chu Qing tightly. Don't leave tonight. Let me reward you properly. 2 large grapes pressed against his chest were a bit much for Chu Qing to handle. His face flushed red. He hurriedly pushed Yi Chenxi away. My parents will worry. I'm going. Then he fled, getting into a taxi as if escaping. Yi Chenxi waved her hand and teased. Yeah, you're a boy, and still so cute. But be careful, don't let anyone seduce you. Inside the car, Chu Qing stared at his palm, lost in thought. This thing is like a curse. With my current cultivation, I can't get rid of it. In the immortal cultivation world, there are pills that can lift this curse. I wonder if this world has any alchemists who can refine such pills. This aloof school beauty is so bold. She actually confessed to our male lead in broad daylight. Just as the male lead, Chu Qing, was passing by the basketball court, a burst of cheers caught his attention. Ah, so handsome. Tang Zian. Go for it, Tang Zian. Chu Qing was stunned. He stood still and looked over. What caught his eye was a purple-haired girl with a ponytail. A loud thud. The girl leaped high. The basketball swished through the net. Looking at her clear, bright pupils, her delicately arched eyebrows and long eyelashes, and her flawless skin with a faint blush, her thin lips, as tender and dewy as rose petals, Chu Qing froze. It really was her. Memories of my past life surfaced in my mind. Tang Zian. She was my first love in high school. In the cultivation world, after 300 years, Chu Qing almost forgot what she looked like. My heart is about to stop. Tang Zian. She's so handsome. At that moment, another cheer rang out. It interrupted Chu Qing, who was lost in thought. As expected, it's different from my past life. It's better not to acknowledge each other. That way, neither of us will feel awkward. Scratching his head, Chu Qing turned to leave. But at that moment, Tang Zian called out to him. Haven't we met somewhere before? Chu Qing smiled wryly. We went to the same school. We've more or less seen each other around. No, it wasn't that kind of seeing. Hearing her decisive words, Chu Qing was stunned again. It was the same as in his past life. You're so stubborn. Tang Zian tossed a basketball, approaching him and saying, forget it. Want to play? I'll teach you. Chu Qing smiled slightly upon hearing this. With a swoosh, the basketball in Tang Zian's hand landed in his. It spun around his fingers. Actually, I can play basketball, Chu Qing said with a smile. Tang Zian's eyes lit up as he excitedly said, then let's have a game. If you lose, you'll be my boyfriend. Chu Qing smiled and said, what if you lose? If I lose, I'll agree to one of your conditions. The two of them made such a scene that people around them couldn't help but notice. The school heartthrob is so impressive. Facing off with the school goddess directly. If I could play basketball with the school heartthrob, I'd be willing to live a few years less. At this moment, Tang Zian gets the ball, and initiates the attack. Tang Zian suddenly spins around, and Chu Qing doesn't react in time. He is completely faked out. Tang Zian takes a few steps, leaps lightly, and throws the basketball. With a sound, goal. Chu Qing watched, a little surprised. It's Tang Zian's ball again in the second game. After getting the ball, she said with a smile, if you lose to me, you have to promise to be my boyfriend, okay? Chu Qing stretched and said, bring it on. Tang Zian, hearing this, started her offense by dribbling the ball. With a backward step, she dodged Chu Qing's defense again. Then she leaped high, about to dunk. However, her expression changed the next moment, because Chu Qing appeared in midair and stopped her. With a bang, Chu Qing blocked the shot, directly swatting the ball away. Chu Qing's young fans around cheered. How can the school heartthrob be this handsome? I'll go home and write him a love letter. My turn. Chu Qingyun flashed a wicked smile while holding the basketball. Tang Ziyan nodded. She stared at him seriously. The next moment, Chu Qing quickly turned and accelerated. With a smooth, graceful move, he passed his opponent. He then jumped high and completed the dunk. For the next 2 shots, Chu Qing also easily completed the dunks. How is this possible, so fast? Tang Ziyan was in disbelief. I lost. What conditions do you want me to agree to? But unexpectedly, Chu Qing directly extended his hand, gently pinched Tang Ziyan's cheek. How about I chase you? The onlookers were all stunned. The school heartthrob is so domineering, so handsome, I'm swooning. Tang Ziyan stood there, laughing with a soft pooh. You want to chase me, huh? You still need some strength. Chu Qing looked at her with a dark expression. What? When did you become so proud? Just a moment ago, the girl was an aloof goddess, but the next second, she wore a girly outfit just to please the male lead. Just now, after defeating the beautiful campus queen Tang Ziyan, Chu Qing came to the Yi family to treat Yi Qingmei's injuries. I didn't expect that helping Yi heal would lead to a breakthrough in my spiritual energy. My spirit body has also been freed by 30%. About half an hour later, Yi Chenxi brought Chu Qing to the outside of the villa. You saved me, and you saved my mother. Speak. What reward do you want? Reward. Chu Qing was taken aback. Suddenly, an image of Yi Chenxi wearing a girl's outfit flashed in his mind. Yi Chenxi looked at him with a strange expression. What are you laughing at? You look so creepy. Chu Qing's face turned red, and he quickly said, Nothing. I'll think about it and tell you later. I'm leaving now. He left the Yi family. Chu Qing walked alone on the road. He recalled his recent gains. After I help Yi Qingmei with her treatment next time, my spirit body should be fully unlocked. At that moment, a car suddenly stopped beside him. A man in pajamas and sunglasses walked down. He came to Chu Qing's side and arrogantly said, You're Chu Qing. I heard you're pursuing Tang Ziyan. Don't you know what you are? Ever heard of Li Yue? Chu Qing looked at the man like he was looking at trash. I, Li Yue, am asking you something. He raised his right hand to strike Chu Qing. However, Chu Qing was faster. He directly grabbed his arm and subdued him. Li Yue let out a pained cry. What are you all standing there for? Go on. I'm going to make this lowly man eat his own spit. Chu Qing immediately pinned him to the ground upon hearing that. Then, he grabbed his hair and stepped forward. He kicked the woman who had attacked him heavily, sending her flying. Then, he turned around and once again pinned Li Yue to the ground. Kid, next time you come out, ZB, make sure to bring more people. Li Yue shouted in response. Wait for it. The Li family won't let you off. Tang Ziyan, don't even think about it. She will definitely obediently marry me. Like a noisy duck. So annoying. Chu Qing cursed quietly. Then he clenched his fist and smashed it down fiercely. A moment later, Chu Qing finished and wrapped up. He then picked up his phone and started thinking. Tang Ziyan. Or perhaps the Tang family is in some kind of trouble. Is this Li Yue from the Li family that Auntie mentioned? How should I gather information? At that moment, Yi Chenxi's figure suddenly appeared in his mind. He had helped her for so long. It's time to trouble her. Then he picked up his phone and sent her the information he wanted, to find out some intelligence. Yi Chenxi replied quickly. She also transferred 100,000 yuan to him. Chu Qing was stunned for a moment before understanding Yi Chenxi's meaning. Oh, right. Buying intelligence is apparently very expensive. Chu Qing shook his head and made the call. Hello, is this Chen Huahua? I would like to ask you about something. Chen Huahua said lazily. Information. Little brother, I'm expensive, you know. Her voice was soft and gentle. An easily swayed little girl. Upon first meeting our male lead, she immediately pursues him. Just now, based on Yi Chenxi's information, Chu Qing contacted the intelligence dealer, Chen Huahua. The two agreed to meet tonight at midnight. At Moonlight Bar, no see, no meet. Chu Qing has now arrived at Moonlight Bar. That intelligence seller didn't ask anything. Sounds like a girl. I don't know if she's reliable. Just as he was feeling anxious, a small hand patted his shoulder. Chu Qing turned around to see a little girl with pigtails waving her hand. The little girl suddenly leaned in and whispered in Chu Qing's ear, "Young man, what information do you want? You are Chen Huahua." Chu Qing had a puzzled look on his face. He secretly thought, the information dealer is actually a soft-spoken, quiet person, easy to topple little lowly. The little lowly placed her hand on his shoulder and said, I'm Chen Huahua. What's your relationship with Yi Chenxi? If you're not lovers, then be my boyfriend. Pfft. The sip of juice Chu Qing had just taken was sprayed out. Cough, cough. I came to buy some information. Chu Qing wiped the corner of his mouth and said, about the Tang Zian family. You know her, right? The little lowly hurriedly pulled away when she heard this. It seems like love has encountered some shock. Is she the one you publicly confessed to on the playground? Is she your girlfriend? No, Chu Qing said irritably. He was still secretly wondering, who exactly is this Chen Huahua? Did she investigate me beforehand? Hearing this, the little girl quickly ran over. She poked Chu Qing's cheek and said, can I chase you then? Chu Qing was speechless. Tell me the information, or I'll go buy it from someone else. The little girl became unhappy and mumbled, humph, they can't even make a joke. He then picked up his phone and said, the Tang family, where Tang Zian is from, is a major business family. Many large enterprises in Jin City are owned by them. Recently, the Tang family's industrial chain encountered problems. Another ancient martial arts family, the Li family, proposed a marriage alliance with the Tang family. They want to marry Li Yue to Tang Zian, the heir of the Tang family. This way, the Li family will step in to help the Tang family. Chu Qing frowned and thought to himself, I didn't expect Tang Zian's family background to be so impressive. She never mentioned it in my past life. The little lowly continued speaking while holding her phone. What you want to know should be about this, right? Pretty much. Chu Qing stroked his chin, thought for a moment, and said, I also want to know more about alchemy. There are ancient martial arts families in this world. Alchemy should be one of the areas they focus on, right? Alchemy. Xiao Luoying looked at him with some doubt and said, you really don't know. The Tang family you were asking about earlier is a family that specializes in refining medicinal pills. No way. This world even has families that refine pills. Chu Qing was somewhat surprised. Then he asked, I'd like to know more. Could you tell me more specifically? Sure. The little lowly looked at him with shining eyes and said, it depends on what conditions you offer me. Little brother Xiaoshui, can you resist this delicate, soft-spoken, little lowly who is so easy to topple? The male lead, Chu Qing, went to Chen Huahua to find out about the school goddess Tang Zi, and after Chen Huahua revealed the Tang family secret, Chu Qing asked her about pill refining. After teasing Chu Qing a bit, the little lowly explained, there are two types of alchemy that I know of. One is ordinary alchemy. The Tang family's alchemy is this type. The other is more mysterious. It is said to use spiritual power. I don't know the specifics. Spiritual power. Chu Qing's heart stirred, feeling somewhat surprised. Is there anyone in this world who practices immortality like I do? At this moment, the little girl jumped off the chair and said, 2 pieces of information. A total of 100,000. Since you're so handsome, I'll cut you a break. Just as she was about to leave, Chu Qing asked again, do you have any information about secret transactions? For example, herbs and the like. The little girl stroked her chin and nodded, saying, if you go with me for a late-night snack, I'll tell you. In no time, the two of them arrived at a barbecue restaurant. The waiter was very enthusiastic. Ah, Huahua's here. What would you like to eat today? The little girl sitting down raised 2 fingers. First, grill 20 skewers of pig kidneys. Add extra spice. 4 glasses of draft beer. No way. Pig kidneys. Chu Qing was stunned. He looked around, seeing women eating pig kidneys and drinking draft beer. He awkwardly covered his face. I forgot. This world is the opposite of what it used to be. 2 hours later. Jay wasn't sure how many rounds had passed. The little girl blushed and let out a big yawn. Then, with a soft thud, she leaned on Chu Qing. She then burst into tears. That guy said I wasn't good enough. And rejected me. I liked him for so many years. I have a flat chest. And I'm a homebody. I also always play games. Don't you think I don't deserve to be liked? Chu Qing quickly comforted her. No way. You're so cute. how could anyone not like you? The little girl tugged at his arm. Her big, sparkling eyes gazed at Chu Qing. Then, do you like me? After saying that, she collapsed into Chu Qing's arms and fainted. Chu Qing, helpless, could only take her home. Seriously, if you can't drink, don't drink so much. After opening the little loli's door, Chu Qingwang looked at the messy room with a confused expression. She clearly dressed like a loli. But why does her room have this style? Shaking his head, Chu Qing placed her on the bed and was about to leave. But in the next moment, the little loli reached out and hooked her arm around his neck. Then she sat up straight and stared at him. Then, touching his cheek, she said, "Don't go. Stay and keep me company, okay?" Chu Qing, feeling overwhelmed, quickly replied, "Okay, okay, I won't go." Hearing this, the little girl giggled. Then, involuntarily, she slowly closed her eyes. With a thud, Chu Qing was used as a pillow by the little girl. She lay on top of him, fast asleep, not sure how long had passed. After confirming that the little girl was sound asleep, Chu Qing finally got up to check the 2 messages sent by the little girl. The first one was the Tang family's information. The Tang family is famous for mastering a large amount of alchemy techniques. But now, they are in danger because of a leak in the pill formula pool. The second piece of information is from an auction house. The largest auction house in the capital, Shenzhen Auction House. It is backed by a powerful ancient martial arts family. Upon seeing this, Chu Qing's heart stirred slightly. In any world, survival is impossible without power. Just so happens that Dao and I have something in this world that is absolutely priceless. Looks like it's time to start my journey. A girlfriend delivered to your doorstep, do you want her? Just now, the male lead received the news about the auction house from the little loli. He hurriedly rushed back home. Then, he closed his eyes tightly. Sitting cross-legged, streams of golden light appeared out of thin air around him. In the cultivation world, there's something called spirit stones. They can help cultivators accelerate their cultivation. They can also help those who cultivate ancient martial arts. Spirit stones can be obtained by mining spirit veins. They can also be condensed by cultivators. But this world doesn't yet have spirit stones. If I take it to auction, it will definitely cause a sensation. At that time, money will flow in like water. Looking at the spirit stone in his hand, Chu Qing smiled slightly. Evening, Chu Qing arrived at the Yi family again. After Zi's last treatment, the mark on Yi Qingmei's back had completely disappeared. After checking with the GF system, she shouted with high spirits, "It's finally done. I'm going to give those kids a serious lesson." Chu Qing, thank you. If you ever encounter any difficulties in the future, come find me. The Yi family will never refuse. Chu Qing remained silent. As expected, women in this world really do have such a fierce demeanor. After bidding farewell to Yi Qingmei, Chu Qing then left directly. I had just finished speaking on behalf of Aunt Yi. My spiritual body has loosened up a bit more. The urgent task now is to cultivate my spiritual body. Just then, Yi Chenxi called out to him from behind. She then jumped up and pounced on him. She immediately pressed herself onto him. After a long while, lips apart. Thank you for curing my mother. Here's a little reward. At this moment, one of the subordinates ran out and shouted, "Young miss, we're in a meeting. How could you run out? It's an emergency." Yi Chenxi waved her hand with a smile, saying, "I'll go back first. I'll give you a proper reward another day." At this moment, Chu Qing was somewhat amused and speechless. Being forcibly kissed by a girl not bad, actually. Back home, Chu Qing sat cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. After a moment, he adjusted his state to its best. He shouted loudly. At this moment, Chu Qing's dantian was like a huge vortex absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. He held out his right hand. From his hand, a sword slowly floated out. It turned out that when Chu Qing entered the time-space gate, he only left this sword behind. Because for a Xianxia cultivator, the sword is his second life. In the chaos, he used a secret technique to fuse the sword into his body. Now that his spirit has awakened, the sword can finally be retrieved. He roared. And the clothes on his body were blown to shreds. He had golden lines shimmering across his body. This is his spirit body. His spirit body has awakened. Chu Qing opened his eyes, overjoyed at the sight. However, at that moment, his sister, Chu Xiao, groggily opened the door. "Brother, What are you yelling about in the house? Chu Qing was suddenly startled. The patterns on his body rapidly faded away. He quickly turned around and hid the sword behind him. Chu Xiao stood at the door, frozen in place. She looked at him, somewhat nervous. YSBG still hiding something from her, Chu Qing. Chu Xiao hurriedly ran out, closed the door, and whispered, "Brother, take your time. Sister will be back soon." Chu Qing's face turned pale, then flushed, as he heard this. This misunderstanding is huge. After a moment, he put on his clothes. The sword shrank and he hung it around his neck. "I'll go to the auction house. Let's see how much this spirit stone is worth." He quickly arrived at the Shenzhen auction. Just as he poked his head inside, the man sitting there scrolling through his phone said, "What time is it? Anyone else coming?" The man glanced around and continued, "We're closed. Come back tomorrow." Chu Qing took out a spirit stone and asked with a smile, "Aren't you going to take a look?" The man glanced at it and said, "A yellow crystal. What's so special about?" He hadn't finished speaking when his pupils suddenly contracted. Then, with a loud bang, the man immediately stood up. He reached out and slowly said, "May I take a look?" You wouldn't believe it. The broken stone casually produced by the boy was actually worth over 1 million. Just now, the male lead, Chu Qing, arrived at the Shenzhen auction house. When he first took out the spirit stone, the shop owner was somewhat disdainful, but after taking it in hand and carefully examining it, he was greatly shocked. "This thing is brimming with spiritual energy. It can assist with cultivation. It's truly a rare treasure," he whispered, stretching out his hand and said, "Let me introduce myself again. My name is Zhai Yu. I'm sort of the half-hearted heir of Shenzhen auction house. My name is Chu Qing." Chu Qing and his hands shook together. Zhai Yu curiously asked, "Mr. Chu, how many of these do you have left?" "These things?" Chu Qing replied calmly. "It's called a spirit stone. I still have 5. "Good." Zhai Yu happily raised one finger. "The minimum estimated price for a spirit stone is 200,000. There are 5 in total. If you plan to sell them all, I'll give you a 1 million deposit first. How about it?" Chu Qing nodded. He felt a bit of joy inside. He declined Zhai Yu's kind offer to see him off. Chu Qing left the auction house alone. This trip was worth it. The price was higher than I expected. If this channel can really be opened, we might be able to establish a prosperous industry. At this moment, the little girl Chen Huahua sent a message. She invited me to have barbecue together tonight. Chu Qing walked into a dark alley while looking around. Suddenly, he furrowed his brows. In the next moment, a figure rushed out from his side. A blade was raised high and swung towards him. Chu Qing remained calm and let out a low growl. "Sword formation." Before his words had finished, the small golden charm around his neck transformed into a shield, protecting him within. Bsji was on top, making a loud bang. The person dressed in black clothing was instantly blasted away. "What is this, GF?" Chu Qing didn't answer. Instead, his whole body turned into a golden afterimage. In the blinding light of the black-clad man's shock, Chu Qing instantly appeared by his side and struck with his sword. The black-clad man immediately spat blood and let out a series of agonized screams. Then, Chu Qing stepped forward, resting his sword on his shoulder and coldly asked, "Who sent you?" The black-clad man, trembling, answered, Li Yue hired me to kill you. You claim you're just an ordinary student. He actually threatened me." Chu Qing let out a cold laugh. "It seems it's time to deal with the Li family." Then, without hesitation, he dealt with the man in black. "Your employer will come to collect your body." But as he turned and walked away a short distance, his heart suddenly began to pound rapidly. Chu Qing clutched his chest, his face extremely pale. "My body, what's going on? Is this the after effect of the spiritual awakening? My body feels so hot. My vision is starting to blur. Looks like this body, using GF or even E for the first time is still quite difficult. I'm relying on my excellent memory." He arrived at Huazhai, panting. His face flushed, he knocked on the door. Chen Huahua opened the door, a look of surprise on her face. Chu Qing, however, frowned, trying to stand straight. Then he reached out and embraced Chen Huahua. Chen Huahua was a little bewildered. What's wrong with you?" Chu Qing didn't answer. But then he slammed it down hard. Then, with a loud bang, the door was shut. "Would you want a cute, soft, little lowly as a girlfriend. Just now, the male protagonist, Chu Qing, was attacked by Ren Ku. Although he took care of Si Ku, he was also hit by his girlfriend's counterattack. In his dazed state, he arrived at Xiao Loli Chenhuahua's home. As soon as they met, Chu Qing fiercely kissed her. Then he closed the door. Entering the room, he gave her a deep French kiss. A long time later, they broke apart. Chu Qing, regaining a little consciousness, stammered, "I'm sorry." He was still cursing inwardly. Why is the YW so strong today? Could it be because I just let someone go? When Chen Huahua heard this, she immediately pounced back into his arms. No need to apologize. Just keep going. It's unclear how much time passed. The intense battle finally came to a close. A chaotic atmosphere still lingered in the living room. Looking at Chen Huahua lying on top of him, Chu Qing wore a satisfied smile. He originally didn't want to be involved with this world's fortune anymore, but it seems that it's impossible to escape now. Then, he would just conquer this world. The next day, at school, Chu Qing entered his catch-up sleep mode. Midday. Tang Zian, the school's most handsome boy, came to the classroom. He patted his shoulder. Then he crouched in front of him and said, "Wake up, come have lunch with me." Chu Qing, awakened from his sleep, was speechless. Are all the women in this world so direct? Just then, Tang Zian stood up. Then she approached him, sniffed, and asked seriously, "Why do you smell of a woman's perfume?" Chu Qing's heart skipped a beat. He felt a little uneasy under her intense gaze. Fortunately, Tang Zian didn't press the matter further. "Forget it. Shall we go eat?" Chu Qing hurriedly stood up and said. He let out a long sigh of relief in his heart, thinking, "Luckily they didn't find out. If they knew I spent last night with another woman, I'd be in big trouble." Watching their backs as they left, Xiao Hui and Lin Dong looked at each other in astonishment. Am I dreaming? The school's most handsome guy personally invited Chu Qing to dinner. Yi Mao explained beside him. You actually don't know about the fated encounter between the school's most handsome guy and the school's most beautiful girl. There are photos on the school forum. Go check it out yourself. The two walked out of the teaching building. Chu Qing asked in confusion, "Why did you suddenly think of asking me to dinner?" Tang Zian lowered her head, thought for a moment, and said, "I don't mean anything else. I just wanted to ask you out for a meal." Then, she leaned forward and asked, "Can I hold your hand?" Chu Qing was completely caught off guard by her. She said there was no special meaning, but she wasn't even embarrassed to lie. He muttered something and directly grabbed Tang Zian's small hand. Tang Zian was startled, her little face turning slightly red. Chu Qing stared at her blankly. With a puff, he burst out laughing. Tang Zian's face instantly flushed crimson with embarrassment. Chu Qing wasn't satisfied yet. He reached out again and pinched her cheek. Tang Zian was taken aback. She took a step back, frowning. Then, she angrily shouted, "How dare you pinch me?" Chu Qing smiled mischievously. "So what if I pinched you?" Looking at his back, Tang Zian was stunned. "I was raised as the heir to the family from a young age. Every relationship I have was planned out. I had never seen Chu Qing before, but since I saw him on the playground, I inexplicably felt that he was someone extremely important to me. Being with him, I even felt a strong sense of security. Why do I feel this way? Why have I suddenly become like a helpless little man? What exactly did the campus heartthrob do to make people resent him?" He was unexpectedly attacked by two women. Just now, inside a sour and spicy noodle shop, Chu Qing waved his hand and shouted, "2 servings of sour and spicy noodles. One of the bowls should have no cilantro, with extra spice and vinegar." How did he know my taste? Tang Zian beside him blushed. Could it be that he investigated me before? Chu Qing looked at her in confusion. "What's wrong? Your face is so red." Tang Zian quickly touched Jia's face. "It's nothing, nothing at all." At this moment, 2 more girls entered through the door. Chu Qing's gaze sharpened. The spiritual energy within her body instantly began to circulate. Although they seemed to be acting casually, after Chu Qing's spiritual energy scan, he discovered they were each carrying a BS behind their backs. "Guests at table 3, please pick up your food at the collection point." At this moment, the waiter's voice was heard. Upon hearing this, Chu Qing stood up and walked toward the food collection area. After he walked over there, the 2 girls exchanged a glance. Then they nodded. Next, the 2 stood up, pulled out their BMAX, and walked toward Tang Zian. One of them came up behind Tang Zian. She held the B5 tightly in both hands and aimed it downward. At that moment, with a swoosh, a bowl of sour and spicy noodles flew through the air. It landed directly on the woman's head. The scalding hot and sour noodles were so hot she cried out in pain. Seeing her companion fail, another woman gritted her teeth and picked up the bowl. BS lunged at Tang Zian again. At the critical moment, Chu Qing rushed forward to block the blow. Chu Qing. Tang Zian behind him screamed in shock. At this moment, the golden light in Chu Qing's eyes seemed ready to leap out. His clothes fluttered as if he were a divine warrior. The energy inside him surged so forcefully that it crashed into the woman. With a thud, the woman spat blood and fell heavily to the ground. Chu Qing, you must leave quickly. Tang Zian clenched his fist and shouted, "They're coming for me. They want me to leave my woman and go." Chu Qing said seriously, "It will never happen in this lifetime." While speaking, he rushed towards the person named him. The woman let out a sharp scream. Then, she kicked her leg at him. Chu Qing bent down to dodge. Then he clenched his glowing fist and swung it fiercely. With a loud bang, the woman let out a scream. She passed out from the pain on the spot. But just then, the woman who had been blasted away leapt high into the air. She attacked again from behind. With a slap, Chu Qing did not dodge or avoid. He directly took the woman's blow head-on. He then turned around, looked at her coldly, and gave a light snort. The next moment, the woman spat out fresh blood. She fell, just like her companion. Looking at the attacker who had fainted, Tang Zian suddenly asked, "Are you from the Gu clan?" Chu Qing shook his head and said, "No. It's a bit complicated to explain, but I would consider myself a solitary practitioner." Tang Zian was about to ask again, but Chu Qing pulled Jia along and walked toward the exit, saying, "We'll talk about this later. It's not safe here. Let your family come and deal with these two. They haven't gone far." Tang Zian supported the weak Chu Qing. Looking at the wounds on his body, Tang Zian said with concern, "I'll take you to the hospital." "It's fine." Chu Qing chuckled. "This little injury, I can heal myself, but I feel a little uneasy. Those two C-class cultivators were average, yet they managed to injure me. It seems I need to create a spiritual energy defense." At this time, Tang Zian hesitantly asked, "Chu Qing, you seem to know something about my family." Chu Qing paused before saying, "Don't misunderstand. I investigated you because I met someone. That's why I did it." "Who?" Tang Zian was a little puzzled. "Li Yue." At this moment, Chu Qing exuded an astonishing aura of something, needs context to translate accurately. What did the male lead do? He actually made the MN school's most handsome boy blush. His heart was racing. Just now, Chu Qing told Tang Zian about Li, the things that happened. Tang Zian worriedly said, "That treacherous villain didn't make things difficult for you, did he?" Chu Qing said with a smug expression, "How is that possible? How could I, young master, not deal with a few cannon fodders?" Tang Zian looked at his appearance, somewhat speechless. After a moment, she asked, "You just saved me for Ji Gong." Chu Qing scratched his head. I don't really know." I muttered to myself, "I can't tell you. Girl, you must have been my wife in my past life." Then I thought for a moment and said, "Actually, I have a feeling that I've known you for a long time. It will happen unconsciously. I want to do something for you, even for you." Tang Zian's face blushed slightly upon hearing this. Her heart pounded. Chu Qing looked at her and continued, "Perhaps in your eyes, everything I do is purposeful, but as long as you trust me, I will definitely help you. I know there are some troubles near your home." Tang Zian nodded and said with a deep breath, "To be honest, our Tang family is known for refining medicine. We have more than a dozen medicine refining factories under our name. But about a month ago, the family's secret recipes were suddenly stolen. At the same time, other alchemy families joined forces to suppress the Tang family. According to our investigation, we found that the Li family was behind all of this. The Li family wants to use this opportunity to force a marriage alliance with our family. I think they clearly intend to swallow the Tang family whole." "It's the Li family." Chu Qing frowned slightly. "The Li family not only wants to target the Yi family, now even the Tang family wants to swallow them whole. Don't they fear playing with fire?" Thinking of this, he said with a serious expression, "If I said, I can help you solve the trouble with the Tang family, would you believe me?" Tang Zian said, surprised. You can solve it. Chu Qing flashed a wicked smile. These things are actually simple. As long as your family can get a new alchemy formula, that's all it takes. Tang Zian was stunned. There was a trace of disappointment in his eyes. A new formula? That's easier said than done. The Tang family owns dozens of research bases across Ji, and has been conducting research for over 20 years. They have only developed dozens of prescriptions. Before she could finish, Chu Qing interrupted her and said, "There will be an auction in 2 days. After the auction ends, I believe your family will take notice of me. We can discuss further at that time." "What's going on?" "It's a matter of the family's survival." Tang Zian nodded seriously. At that moment, Chu Qing suddenly felt a wave of heart palpitations sweep through his body. Tang Zian's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly supported him. What happened to you?" Chu Qing, clutching his chest, looked serious. It turns out that previously, he had placed a spiritual mark on Yi Chenxi, because he was worried about her. But now, this mark has been erased. After a brief pause, Chu Qing quickly said to Tang Zian, "I have something urgent, so I won't return to school. Please have Lin Dong ask the teacher for leave for me." One picked up the phone and dialed Chen Hua's number. "Hua, Yi Chenxi is in trouble. Hack into her phone, then send me her location." "Okay, I'll send you the location right away." Chen Hua agreed. He immediately opened his computer and started to locate. "Here," Chu Qing dialed another person's number. "Jia Yu, this is Chu Qing. I want to borrow your car." "Okay, where are you?" "I'll come and get you." Jia Yu agreed without saying a word. After hanging up the phone, he shouted loudly, "Everyone get out, get out. Today, the Shenzhen auction house is closed. These two little Karami have gotten too bold. They even dared to kidnap the young lady of the Yi family." After closing the auction house, we quickly got in touch with our male lead, Chu Qing. And Chen Huahua also sent the location of Yi Chenxi. "Follow this target," Chu Qing said, holding up his phone. Jia Yu glanced at it. He grinned and said, "Sit tight." In the next moment, LB Genie let out a cannon roar, and dashed out. In just a few minutes, they caught up with the vehicle holding Yi Chenxi. Chu Qing frowned slightly, a golden light flickering in her eyes. Behind the car, Yi Chenxi was lying there unconscious. "That's the car. Can you make him stop?" Jia Yu confidently replied, "Yes." The next moment, the Lamborghini accelerated again. The Lamborghini first overtook, then performed a drift. It directly hit the front of the van. How can a van possibly compare to an LB Genie? The van swerved. Then it crashed into the guardrail beside it. Moments later, two small figures emerged from the heavily smoking van. Chu Qing, holding a golden short sword, slowly approached. "There's a situation." The two little GAGAs shouted loudly. They raised their WQ, and started shooting wildly. Chu Qing closed his eyes. A flash of golden light passed. There were two crisp sounds. The distance, originally over 10 meters. Chu Qing instantly appeared behind them. Without even looking, he retracted his WQ, and walked toward the van. But just as he was about to open the van's rear door, his pupils suddenly contracted. In the next moment, a golden light appeared. He was thrown several meters away. With a loud bang, the van also erupted into a blazing fire. Two people dressed in Taoist robes walked out of the flames. Chu Qing frowned as he looked at them. Such power. This is not something ordinary people can possess. Could it be that there are cultivators in this world too? At this moment, a Taoist said, "I see you're not very old. And your skills are quite good. How about considering joining my Chuanjin sect?" Chuanjin sect. I've heard of it. Chu Qing sneered and continued. "But you two are a joke. Not like their disciples. At all." Another Taoist priest flew into a rage. "Senior brother, don't waste your breath on him. Let's go together. Let's teach this undisciplined brat a lesson." Upon hearing this, Chu Qing sneered again. "With your pathetic skills, you dare come down the mountain. I think you should go back to the mountain gate and cultivate for a few more years." The two Taoists were enraged by these words. His junior brother stepped forward. Fire spiritual energy surrounding his body. A WD appeared in his hand out of thin air. "You dare insult my sect? Let me see what you've got." Speaking at the same time, he threw a package towards Chu Qing. Chu Qing didn't dodge. He swung his golden short sword. With a loud boom, the two collided instantly. A roar echoed. The immense force sent his junior brother flying back several meters. Staring at the dent in the W bag, the junior brother roared, "My butterfly fire stick! You dare destroy my WQ? So what if I destroyed your WQ?" Before the words finished, Chu Qing grabbed his WD with both hands and smashed it down hard. The junior brother quickly raised his WQ to block, but the moment the two collided, two crisp clicking sounds came from his W bag. The next moment, WQ snapped into two pieces. His junior brother closed his eyes and said calmly, "Kid, you're done." Then he gathered all his fire spiritual energy, and unleashed a fierce punch at Chu Qing's yen. However, Chu Qing casually swung a golden sword light. In the next moment, his arm was already severed. The junior disciple was stunned. He immediately let out a scream of agony. "My arm!" The scream instantly woke the senior disciple from his daze. "How dare you hurt my junior?" The senior disciple shouted angrily. Then, he assumed a fighting stance and launched a powerful strike at Chu Qing, to rescue the young lady who had been forcibly assaulted by him. Chu Qing, the male protagonist, directly severed the Taoist's arm. The Taoist's scream woke his fellow cultivator. "Dare you injure my junior brother?" he roared. Then, he swung the whisk in his hand. A Bagua diagram materialized behind him. The next moment, beams of energy slammed into Chu Qing. With a loud boom, the area around Chu Qing exploded in a violent shockwave. Moments later, after the dust settled, the Taoist priest, held in front of Chu Qing with one hand, was no longer breathing. "Junior brother, senior brother is heartbroken." Chu Qing casually threw it aside and sneered. "If you want to practice immortality, then practice properly. Why must you make trouble in the mortal world? Is this what you so-called righteous Taoists do? Brat, today, I will make you." The senior brother let out a satisfied roar. He swung the whisk in his hand. He began chanting a spell. A powerful aura appeared around him. Then, he shot up into the air, rising halfway into the sky. But just as the final, powerful strike was still gathering power, Chu Qing's figure slowly appeared behind him. In the next moment, Chu Qing's short sword pierced him, chilling him to the core. The senior opened his eyes wide, seemingly in disbelief. As he fell, he muttered, "My senior sister will." Looking at the two Taoists' horses, they faded away. A great battle also came to a dramatic end. Chu Qing slowly walked to the back door of the van. At this moment, young Miss Yi Chenxi was still unconscious. "Girl, star awakening." Chu Qing patted her cheek. Yi Chenxi jolted awake and sat up. When she saw Chu Qing, she hurriedly said, "Chu Qing, what are you doing here? Hurry, leave. Those two old Taoists are very powerful. I can't even get close to them." Chu Qing embraced her and comforted her, saying, "It's all right. It's okay now. Don't be afraid." Yi Chenxi looked at the fragmented limbs in front of her, somewhat dazed. After they had embraced for a long time, Chu Qing asked, "Do you know who's after you?" Yi Chenxi frowned and said, "I have a feeling. It's the Li family. My family and the Li family have broken ties, officially at war. But every time we clash, the Li family inexplicably produces some experts. It puts us in a very passive position." Chu Qing frowned slightly upon hearing this, silently thinking to himself, "No wonder Li Jiai has been causing trouble everywhere lately. He must have connected with those Taoist priests practicing in the deep mountains somehow." Yi Chenxi continued, "Those experts aren't ordinary people. They all possess incredibly strong abilities. When they made their move, there wasn't even a fluctuation in their aura." Thinking that Chu Qing was also a man, she quickly said, "I'm not looking down on men. It's not about that. I know." Chu Qing smiled and interrupted her, saying, "The situation in your family isn't exactly cheerful right now." Yi Chenxi waved her fist and said angrily, "It's not just pessimistic. It's not only the Li family, but also some inconspicuous small families that are constantly causing trouble for the Yi family." At this moment, Chu Qingyi seemed to have thought of something and said, "Do you think this could be related to the World Treasure Auction in a couple of days? Normally, the ancient martial arts families are active. It is highly likely that a rare spiritual treasure is about to appear." Yi Chenxi stroked his chin and thought for a moment. "That makes sense. Perhaps the Li family received the news first. They've been constantly disrupting other ancient martial arts families, preventing them from getting the information, and unable to respond in time." After figuring all of this out, Yi Chenxi suddenly picked up Chu Qing and kissed him on the lips. Chu Qing, you're really my lucky star. Then, with her little face blushing, she asked, do you want to come home with me? I need to hurry back and tell them the news. My mother has also been wanting to thank you. Chu Qing rubbed her head and said, then let's do it together. The two quickly arrived at the Yi family. At this time, the Yi family's conference room was already full of people. After Chu Qing and Yi Chenxi arrived, Yi Qingmei smiled and said, Chu Qing, you're here. Sit wherever you like. A woman's voice suddenly interrupted. Letting an outsider join our Yi family's secret meeting, that's inappropriate. Moreover, he's a man. Yi Qingmei frowned. A hint of dissatisfaction appeared in her eyes. Chu Qing was also speechless because of the women. He took a deep breath and said with a smile, I'm here this time, not to pry into your secret meeting. I'm here to talk to you about cooperation. Facing the future and when in Nyang's rising power, what will you do? Just now, Yi Chenxi brought the male protagonist Chu Qing to the Yi family's meeting room. Before Chu Qing could speak, he was met with the eldest Yi sister's ridicule. Chu Qing didn't mind. He stated that he wasn't there to attend the Yi family's secret meeting, but to discuss a collaboration. The eldest sister snorted coldly upon hearing this, showing her disdain. Yi Qingmei also frowned slightly. Chu Qing was reckless. He originally wanted to use this opportunity to bring him into the family. He intended to finalize his marriage with Chenxi, but now it seems, it's probably impossible. At this moment, Chu Qing took out a spirit stone. As he threw it to the eldest sister of the Yi family, he said, take a look at this. The eldest sister said indifferently, it's just a piece of worthless rock. Yi Qingmei looked at the river channel. What is this? What's its use? Chu Qing said, it's a little gadget I made. It's called a spirit stone. Now channel the GF inside your body. Feel the flow of internal energy within you. Upon hearing this, Yi Qingmei began to follow the instructions. As the technique circulated, the spirit stone in her hand began to emit a golden light. After a moment, Yi Qingmei slowly opened her eyes. Immediately, a powerful aura surged from her body. Amidst the astonished onlookers from the Yi family, Yi Qingmei said in an unquestionable tone, Shao Qing, how many of these do you have? As long as the price is reasonable, my Yi family will take however many you have. Chu Qing shook her head and said, these spirit stones are not for sale. Sister Tian, Yi Jinju, was anxious. Boy, do you dare to ask us? Mi Qingmei also looked at him with a serious expression. Chu Qing extended a finger and said with a faint smile, let me finish. The spirit stones will appear at the auction in 2 days. I will price them according to that standard. If you want to buy, you can come to me anytime. Since it's for Yi Chenxi's sake, I'll give you a discount. As for why I'm coming to see you this time, I want to offer you something extra. One is a small trinket for protection, and the other is something that can. Pills that enhance combat power in a short time. As soon as the words fell, the eldest and second eldest Yi sisters exclaimed in surprise. Combat power enhancement in a short time, how much of a boost can it provide? Chu Qing spoke slowly in response. 30%. Yi Jinju, somewhat disbelieving, wanted to ask further. Yi Qingmei interrupted her and asked, how long will it take to complete? What's the price? Chu Qing stroked his chin, thought for a moment, and said, the talisman will be ready soon. It'll only take a few days. Making this is just a simple favor for you. You can set the price. The pills will take about a week. I'll provide you, the Yi family, with the entire first batch. We'll decide on the price later. Why are you helping us so much? Yi Jinju was both puzzled and uneasy. Because of Yi Chenxi, Chu Qing said solemnly, she's my friend. Yi Chenxi looked at him, so moved that she almost cried. After both sides reached an agreement, Yi Chenxi brought Chu Qing to her backyard. Yi Chenxi looked at him and said, at first, I just wanted to flirt with you, but after becoming friends, you've ended up helping me and my family in every way. Chu Qing looked at her without saying anything, but I secretly muttered to myself, life here is still worth looking forward to. After the auction and the Yi family help me gain recognition, I will establish a commercial empire of my own in Tianjin. With these ambitious aspirations, Chu Qing left the Yi family and returned to his home. Dad, Mom, I'm home. Chu Qing just entered the house. The next second he froze in place. A woman was sitting on the sofa in front of him. The woman kept looking Chu Qing up and down. Then she nodded in satisfaction and said, "You must be Chu Qing, right? I'm your second aunt, Chu Qinghe." Chu Qing forced a smile and greeted her. But inside, he was still wondering, what's going on? I've never heard of any relatives like this before. Not once, growing up. At this point, the second aunt spoke again. "You really are such a beautiful child. I'm here to matchmake for you." Chu Qing was shocked upon hearing this. What? Matchmake? I'm still in school, okay? In this world where women are dominant and men are inferior, men are just commodities to strengthen a family. The male lead, Chu Qing, just returned home from the Yi family. His second aunt, appearing from nowhere, immediately declared her intention to marry him off. Chu Qing's skin crawled when he heard this. "Second aunt, I'm still in school. Let's talk about these things after I graduate from university." "University?" Aunt Air said disdainfully. "A little boy, playing house. What university is he going to? What a waste." Chu Qing frowned upon hearing this and thought to himself, in the original world, there was a preference for sons over daughters. But here, it's the opposite. Still, it's equally annoying. At this moment, second aunt asked as she drove back. "Where's Chu Xiao? Why haven't I seen her? Has she gone to graduate school?" Chu Tiannan shook his head and said, "No, she's at home now. She's not doing anything." At this time, Chu Xiao was still sleeping in the room. Chu Qing estimated that she had probably been out all night again. Auntie sneered and said, "I told you, your family's way of educating is flawed. It's just like back in the day, NM. The children they raised are all like this." Suddenly, Lin Yuantu stood up and said, "You all talk first. I'm going to make some tea." Watching my dad's hunched figure, Chu Qing's gaze sharpened. This woman's mouth is too foul. I really want to stuff a bag over her head and beat her up. Look at him, like that, so submissive. What's so good about that? My second aunt continued. If you had listened to the family back then, and married the young master of the Lu family in Haishur, how many years of hard work could you have saved yourself? Bang! A loud bang. My second aunt was startled. She looked at Chu Qing, who was pounding on the table. Chu Qing said coldly, "Sorry, I just saw a fly on the table. It's really annoying." "All right." Aunt Air stood up, touching the hair by her ear, and said, "Since you're not welcoming, I won't say more. But this time, you must give the family an explanation. Otherwise, what authority will the family have left?" Upon hearing this, Chu Tiannan's face darkened. He seemed to age a few years in that moment. "And you?" Aunt looked at Chu Qing and said again, "Cherish the time you have left in school. It might not last long. You're getting married." Chu Qing lightly smiled. "What you say doesn't count." Aunt Lang Ting scoffed. "This isn't up to you. Just honestly let the family arrange it for you. You'll marry a wealthy young lady with a good family background. Your family's future will be better off. Selling yourself to buy a better life." Chu Qing said disdainfully. "I'm not like some people who are so desperate, unable to enjoy life. You like selling yourself so much. How about I buy you a leg? Let's see how much it costs." Chu Qing. Chu Tiannan glared at him. The second aunt was clearly startled. She shivered all over. She forced herself to say, "Little sister, you should take him to see a doctor if you have the chance. Don't let it be some kind of depression. Why is his heart so dark and gloomy?" Chu Qing let out a cold snort. He turned and left. After returning to his room, he clenched his fist. He could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. For Chu Qing, a reunion after many years was far less important than family. A moment later, he picked up his phone and dialed Yi Chenxi's number. "Chenxi, I need to trouble you with something." Time quickly passed to the early morning. In a J bar, Aunt Air, with a flushed face, said to two male guests, "Little devil, let me kiss you." Suddenly, a woman's figure appeared outside at this moment. The woman looked around. She picked up her phone and said, "Sister Yi, I found the person. Just one leg." "Wait a second." Yi Chenxi paused for a moment. Then she smiled faintly and said, "Add a kidney too. If your teacher is like this, would you still sleep through class or skip it?" After Chu Qing finished his call with Yi Chenxi, he sat cross-legged on the bed and started making a protective talisman. He looked at the protective jade pendant that fell into his hand. Chu Qing's expression was serious. The situation in Tianjin is becoming increasingly unstable. There are also issues within my mother's family. Fortunately, there is still time to make some spiritual tools for my family and friends' protection. He then waved his finger. A utility knife flew over. He waved his finger again. The tool knife rushed toward the protective jade pendant at an incredibly fast speed. The jade pendant emitted a sharp sound. A ceiling formation appeared out of thin air. The tool knife was also sent flying. Chu Qing nodded in satisfaction as he watched the scene. The jade pendant that Jai Yu helped buy is of good quality. It can not only hold a defensive sword formation, but it also lets me know when the wearer is in danger. At the breakfast table the next morning, Lin Yuan-tu, with dark circles under his eyes, started to rant. Xiao Qing, you must study hard. Thinking back to yesterday, Chu Qing felt a sudden pang in her nose. I know, Dad. Don't worry too much. I'll take care of your mom's side of the family for you, Lin Yuan-tu said in response. What do you mean by taking care of them? It doesn't matter what happens between me and NM now. As long as you're doing well, that's all that matters. By the way, I've prepared something for you and my sister, Chu Qing said, taking 3 protective jade pendants out of his pocket. Lin Yuan-tu and Chu Tiannan picked up the jade pendant and began to examine it carefully. At that moment, the jade pendant emitted a refreshing aura. Lin Yuan-tu asked in surprise, what is this? Where did you get this pendant? Why does it feel so refreshing when touched? Chu Qing chuckled. I got it from a temple as a blessing, blessed by a high monk. Of course it works. The scene changes to a school classroom. Chu Qinghua is dozing off. Even a mortal can't withstand staying up all night making spirit tools. At this time, the class monitor, Song Chaoran, whispered, Chu Qing. Don't sleep, it's class time. But Chu Qing has gone on a date with Zhou Gong's daughter. Just then, a figure appeared before the two of them. Song Chaoran was extremely nervous. Chu Qing. With a bang, Chu Qing was startled awake. The math teacher said with a knowing smile, I slept really well. Go up and solve this problem. Chu Qing took the chalk and walked to the podium, feeling a headache coming on. This problem, how do I solve it? I wasn't paying attention. Wait, no. This type of problem, Song Chaoran explained it to me before. With this thought, he became full of energy. His lips curled up as he immediately began writing with enthusiasm. A moment later, he put down the chalk and said, Teacher, I've finished writing. The math teacher looked at the answer, somewhat puzzled. How could this be? The students below also started whispering excitedly. They whispered to each other, so fast. And everything is correct. Yeah. Some people are still sleeping in class. I'm fully focused and still can't do it. The math teacher hid the shock in her eyes and smiled. Even if you've reviewed beforehand, you still can't sleep in class. Understand? Chu Qing scratched his head and thought. In my past life, I was always a poor student. When did I ever experience this kind of treatment? At that moment, the math teacher stroked his chin and continued. By the way, Chu Qing, you don't have a position yet, right? Just in time, I need a class representative. You should take the role, teacher. I think. Seeing that Chu Qing was about to refuse, the math teacher pushed up his black-framed glasses and said, What's wrong? Do you have any problems? Chu Qing immediately fell for her charm. No, I have no objections. How should I respond to the school goddess's invitation? Waiting online. I'm quite anxious. The male lead, Chu Qing, was once again lying on his desk after class. But this time, he didn't sleep. Instead, he was making a talisman. A talisman can protect its wearer from a fatal attack once. The conservative estimate is 30,000. Not sure how many he can make in such a short time. While Chu Qing was focused on making the talisman, his friend Lin Dong walked over and patted him on the shoulder, saying, Chu Qing, don't sleep, I need to tell you something. Interrupted, Chu Qing nearly peed his pants. The talisman in his hand also exploded with a loud noise. It caused BZWC. He nearly went astray. Lin Dong picked up a small handkerchief, wiped his face, and said, Chu Qing, do you still dare to play with fire in the classroom? Chu Qing ignored him, and instead looked at the charm of the Jiwei sword in her hand. It's not broken, but the quality is a bit poor. Where's the fire play? Here, I'll give you something good. It can refresh and ensure safety. Don't tell anyone else. Lin Dong paused, then said, This peachwood sword. Good brother. You're thoughtful. I also want to give you something. Watch as Lin Dong pulled a cola from behind and handed it to Chu Qing. Chu Qing stared blankly at the bottle of Coke. Coke. Half a bottle left. Ah, Brother Chu. Brother Chu. Please let me go. I have something important to tell you. Lin Dong, his ears still being pulled, hastily changed the subject. The school sports meet is in a couple of days. Are you going to participate? You're the one who beat the school heartthrob at basketball. Chu Qing frowned and replied irritably, I'm not participating. I'm busy. Lin Dong quickly followed him and persuaded him. Your basketball highlight reel has already been posted on the school website. Even if you don't want to go, the head teacher will make you participate. Besides, we're already in our 3rd year of high school. It's the last sports meet. Don't you want to leave some memories behind? What he said makes sense. Since we've returned to high school, we should experience high school life properly. Thinking of this, Chu Qing reluctantly said, that line. Unexpectedly, Dong was overjoyed. Good. A meal is settled. What meal? Chu Qing's eyebrows shot up, his face darkening. You wouldn't have made a bet with someone, would you? While the two were playfully fighting, a woman in a very short dress walked into the classroom. Everyone in the classroom gasped at her. Isn't that Lin Warner? That's the girl who's incredibly talented at singing and playing instruments. The super popular campus star. She's so beautiful. Lin Warner came to a spot not far from Chu Qing, waving her hand and giggling. Chu Qing. Long time no see. Chu Qing said, looking at his childhood sweetheart. It has been a long time. Lin Warner said playfully, you've become a big shot at our school lately. You actually beat Tang Zian at basketball. I'm rooting for you, Chu Qing casually said. It just so happened that I was in a good mood that day and got a bit tanned. At this moment, Lin Warner suddenly placed her arm on his shoulder and said, someone from our middle school class is organizing a reunion. Guess who it is? Chua Buchuan, Chu Qing said without hesitation. Lin Warner was a bit surprised. How did you guess? Chu Qing chuckled. In our class, he's the only one who loves to show off. Who else could it be? Lin Warner patted his shoulder and asked. So, are you going? It would be pretty boring if you don't come. Besides, some people in the class really miss you. Chu Qing thought for a moment and said. You've already spoken. How could I possibly refuse? Lin Warner responded with a sweet laugh. It's settled then. Tomorrow night, I'll call you. See you then. But just then, she suddenly attacked. She pinched Chu Qing's cheek. You're getting more and more handsome. No wonder Tang Zian is so worried about you. While speaking, her 2 large breasts kept swaying. Chu Qing watched her departing back, speechless. When did Lin Warner become so annoying? She actually dared to be cheeky with me. Lin Dong pointed at the riverbank where Lin Warner was trembling. Chu Chu Gu, Brother Chu. How come you're so familiar with Lin Warner? Chu Qing said calmly. We were classmates from elementary school to middle school. What's with that expression? Lin Dong clenched his fists angrily and said. Wah! Lin Warner is my goddess. Brother Chu, Daddy Chu, you must help me get her autograph. Chu Qing frowned and hurriedly pushed him aside. Can't you ask her for it yourself? A grown man with no ambition at all. Lin Ku blushed, clenched his hands, and said nothing. I don't even dare to talk to her. She's my goddess. Goddess, do you understand? If she could spend a day with me, I would be so happy I'd pass out. Chu Qing stood up and said with disdain. Look at you, how pathetic. I have something else to do. I'm leaving. What to do when faced with the young Mrs. forceful advances again? The male lead, Chu Qing, directly chooses to fight back. Chu Qing attends a classmate reunion with the school's beautiful and mature senior, Gu Ying. He arrives at the classroom of the school belle, Tang Zian. Tang Zian is sitting there at this moment, lowering her head to ponder a math problem. Chu Qing comes before her and says, Are you working on problems? I didn't disturb you, did I? Tang Zian was suddenly startled. When she saw that it was Chu Qing, a flash of surprise crossed her eyes. This problem is a bit difficult. I've been thinking about it all afternoon. Tang Zian's face flushed slightly. Chu Qing walked over and looked down. He almost burst out laughing. He didn't expect this problem to be math. The problem the teacher asked me to do today. This problem, I'll teach you. While speaking, he casually pulled a. The bench started explaining eagerly. A moment later, Tang Zian said excitedly, Your method is so easy to understand. This isn't the time to talk about that. Chu Qing glanced at the many classmates surrounding them and smiled. Then, he took Tang Zian's hand and said, Come with me, I need to talk to you about something. A moment later, the two arrived at the small forest on the school grounds. Chu Qing took out a protective jade pendant and placed it in her hand, saying, "Here, take this. Keep it with you from now on." Tang Xian, after all, came from a prominent family. She glanced at it and immediately realized that this jade pendant was anything but ordinary. She shook her head and said, "I can't accept this. It's too valuable. Be good. Take it." Chu Qing held her hand and said, "This jade has a special purpose. It will keep you safe. Trust me." Tang Xian felt a warmth in her heart. She was so moved that she almost cried. She turned her hand to grasp Jia Chuqing's large hand and whispered, "Thank you." A moment later, Chu Qing returned to the classroom. "Now, no one is disturbing me. Yi Hao can complete 30 before school ends." Soon it was time for school to end. Chu Qing had also filled his backpack with talismans. Tonight, he would go find Yi Chenxi. See what price she would offer. At that moment, a chubby hand landed on his shoulder. Lin Dong walked up to him and lewdly said, "Heh, are you coming out with us tonight? Where should we go to have fun?" Chu Qing seemed a bit hesitant. Lin Donghuan said with a smile, "I'll take you to a good place. It's very CJ." Chu Qing seemed to understand something. He waved his hand and said, "No need. I have something else to do. Let's plan for next time." Soon, he arrived at Yi Chenxi's house. As Chu Qing entered the door, Yi Chenxi rushed over. "Chu Qing, you finally made it. I'm going to go crazy." Before Chu Qing could speak, she stepped forward and sniffed. Her eyes widened. The next moment, she said angrily, "Say it, you smell like another woman's scent. Are you seeing someone else?" Chu Qing quickly raised his hands in surrender. "Don't mess around. I don't have the time to look for women. I have important business with you. This was specially made for you. Don't refuse to see it." Looking at the jade pendant in his hand, Yi Chenxi exclaimed in surprise. "This is..." Chu Qing didn't speak, but instead directly, he flung the water cup. Under Yi Chenxi's questioning gaze, the jade pendant emitted a light. The next moment, a ceiling formation appeared out of thin air in front of her. The water cup was flung away. Chu Qing stepped forward, took her hand, and said, "It's for your protection. Auto-activation. It's better than those amulets." Yi Chenxi looked moved. "You're amazing." As she spoke, she threw herself onto Chu Qing on the sofa. Then, pointing at his forehead, she threatened, "Don't think that just because you gave me a gift, you can fool around outside. If I find out you have other women, the last names seem to be cut off or incomplete." "Heh." Chu Qing chuckled awkwardly. Then he reached out and gently touched Yi Chenxi's face. He flipped his hand and pressed her down under him. "All right, I'm not teasing you anymore. I've got something to do. I'll leave first. We'll continue another day." After saying that, he turned and left, arriving at Chen Huahua's home. Such a soft and cute girl, how could you bear to leave her? After bidding farewell to Miss Yi Chenxi, the male lead, Chu Qing, arrived at the home of the cute girl, Chen Huahua. As soon as he reached the door, he found it was open. Chu Qing was speechless. Doesn't this girl lock her door?" At this moment, Chen Huahua was curled up on the sofa, sleeping soundly. Chu Qing thought she was sick and quickly went over to feel her forehead. Chen Huahua suddenly jumped up in shock. When she saw it was Chu Qing, she cried and threw herself into Chu Qing's arms. "I dreamed of my mom again. She doesn't want me and dad anymore. You're not going to be the same, are you? Leaving me so suddenly without a word." Chu Qing froze. A strange tightness gripped his heart. Will she really never leave? Maybe one day I'll return to my original world. At that time, will I still interact with Chen Huahua like this? Chu Qing didn't know what the future held. But now he said seriously and earnestly, "Don't worry, I won't leave." Chen Huahua teasingly smiled and said, "Ting Ting, I bet you wouldn't dare." Then Xiao Hy angrily shouted, "If you dare leave, I. After I finished speaking, Chen Huahua pounced on Chu Qing. After a stormy scene, Chen Huahua collapsed onto the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Chu Qing, on the other hand, put on his clothes and thought to himself, "I should go home. Tomorrow is the weekend. It will be bad if Dad finds out I'm not here." Just as he was about to pick up his phone to leave a message for Chen Huahua, his phone accidentally brushed against the mouse. He looked at the computer screen that lit up. Chu Qing was stunned. What is this? After looking at it for a moment, he furrowed his brows and thought to himself, These are the records of the Jinwen ancient martial arts family. Looking at the sleeping Chen Huahua, Chu Qing was deeply moved. It turned out that Huahua had secretly helped me gather so much information. He placed the protective jade pendant in front of her, then gently kissed her forehead. Chu Qing then left. However, on his way home, he received a call from Lin Yuantu. Chu Qing gave a wry smile and quickly answered the phone, saying, "Hello, Dad." However, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Lin Yuantu, a housewife. "Chu Qing, where are you? I asked NM to pick you up." Hearing this, Chu Qing hurriedly replied, "I'm near the Parkenshop supermarket." Chu Tiannan's car pulled up beside Chu Qing. "Mom, you got here so fast." "I just happened to be nearby when NB called," Chu Tiannan replied, then smiled and asked, "Honestly, where did you go to play? You smell strongly of a girl's perfume." Chu Qing, his face flushed, nervously explained. "Many people from my class went." Chu Tiannan took out a box and said, "You can go to the birthday party, but you can't be alone with girls. Understand?" "I understand." Chu Qing breathed a sigh of relief and asked, "Mom, aren't you quitting already?" Chu Tiannan exhaled a puff of smoke. "Cover up the smell on you. NB's nose is very sensitive. If he finds out, it'll be terrible." Chu Qing touched his nose. He nodded in agreement. His face was filled with an awkward smile. At that moment, his phone dinged. Chu Qing picked it up and looked, somewhat surprised. The talisman sold to the Yi family for 1.2 million. Just messing around with a few otherworldly black technologies has turned the world upside down. If I were to produce the elixirs of the cultivation world, wouldn't they sell for astronomical prices? The business empire I'm going to build is just around the corner. It's within reach. Back home, Lin Yuantu really started gaining weight. He whispered to Chu Qing with a hint of meaning, "Report any discovery of abnormalities to me immediately." "Understood." "Got it?" Chu Qing made a "okay" gesture with his hand and said, "Don't worry, I'm on your side." Back to the room, Chu Qing sent a message to Jia Yu. After receiving confirmation that Jia Yu was free, the two of them arrived at the Jiner Haiho Hot Pot restaurant. At the dinner table, Chu Qing took out the jade pendant and handed it to Jia Yu. Staring at the protective jade pendant in his hand for a long time, Jia Yu exclaimed in shock, "Brother Chu Qing, this is a great gift, but it's too precious to give me." Chu Qing smiled and said, "It's not that precious. Just a small token of my goodwill. You know what this is. I won't explain it." Jia Yu chuckled and raised his J-cup, saying, "It seems you've looked into me as well. Everything is understood without saying a word. Thanks, brother. This one's on me." After putting down the J-cup, Jia Yu let out a bitter laugh and said, "To be honest, this is the first time I've felt that someone truly wants to be my friend." Chu Qing was stunned and asked, "Why do you say that?" Upon hearing this, Jia Yu spoke with a bitter tone. "I grew up relying on my father, until I started high school. He only then told me that my mother came from a prominent family. Soon after, I was taken back to my maternal family, and quickly transferred to a prestigious school. But my classmates looked at me strangely. One girl even directly asked me if I was a love child." He chuckled self-deprecatingly at this point. "Do you know that feeling? In their eyes, I'm just someone who doesn't belong. An outcast. Even though I've been groomed for the past 2 years, their gaze towards me has never changed." Chu Qing shook his head and said, "Although I don't share your troubles, but I'm not necessarily living any more comfortably than you. My mother also came from a prominent family. Her family didn't approve of her being with my father, so they eloped. Recently, my mother's family has come looking for us. They're pressuring my parents, and they say they want to introduce me to a wealthy woman. Over 200 jin, approximately 220 pounds. Upon hearing this, Jia Yu sprayed out the liquid he had just drunk. "Ha ha 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 ha. Excuse me." Looking at Jia Yu, who was laughing and crying, Chu Qing said helplessly, "I knew you'd react like this." He wiped away the tears from the corner of his eyes. Jia Yu raised his glass, not saying anything. "I'm happy today. Let's not talk about that. It's rare to get out and drink. Let's drink until we're drunk tonight. Come on. Cheers to your chubby wife." "What do you do if you have an older sister who goes crazy when she gets drunk?" After exhausting himself wrestling with Jia Yu, the male lead, Chu Qing, staggered home. As soon as he reached the door, he noticed a suspicious figure fumbling with the door. Chu Qing silently placed his hand on the door. Chu Xiao screamed in fright. Chu Qing quickly covered her mouth, saying, "What's your name? Do you want your parents to find out? You smell awful." After seeing clearly that it was Chu Qing, Chu Xiao suddenly broke free and said, "Aren't you the same? A little boy's home. Going out drinking in the middle of the night. Be careful, you might not get married." Before the words were finished, she hiccuped. Her body started swaying. Then, she directly collapsed into Chu Qing's arms. Chu Qing was a bit speechless. In the end, he exerted a lot of effort to send her back to her room. Chu Qing muttered to himself and collapsed as well. But the next moment, he wore a puzzled expression. "What is this? It feels so good." Chu Xiao mumbled. "Xiaofeng, good boy, don't be shy." Chu Qing slightly opened her eyes and thought, "Who is Xiaofeng?" Before he could figure things out, Chu Xiao puckered her lips and leaned toward him. "WC." Chu Qing was so scared that he jumped out of bed. "What just happened?" "J, as expected, is no good. I'll never drink again." The next morning, Chu Qing. I arrived at a clothing store. I had just changed into a new outfit. The sales assistant looked at me with hearts in her eyes and said, "Young man, you could debut in this outfit." Chu Qing was so delighted that it was like a burst of spring flowers. "Wrap up all the clothes I just tried on, and send them to my home. Got my outfit for the class reunion. I still need to buy a car. In the future, if something happens, I can't always bother Bao for help." Just as I was thinking about this, someone suddenly called out from behind. "What? You don't recognize me anymore? Old classmate, Chua Buchuan." Chu Qing said uncertainly. Chua Buchuan nodded and said, "Why are you interested in shopping? Don't you prefer staying at home? By the way, I'm organizing a class reunion tonight. Would you like to come?" Chu Qing smiled and replied, "Definitely coming. Lin Wanner told me 2 days ago." "Wanner told you herself." Chua Buchuan was a little displeased. "Then I'll be waiting for you that night." After saying that, he turned around and left here with gritted teeth. Chu Qing watched his back and recalled past memories. "I heard he only changes his NK once a week." "No way. So dirty." "You're Chu Qing, right? Your face is so innocent looking. Innocent on the surface, but wild and unrestrained in private. That's what I like about you." After starting high school, only then did I realize that I was isolated everywhere in middle school. It was all because of Zwabuchuan spreading rumors behind my back. "Tonight, I will give you a chance to slap me in the face." Chu Qing gave a sinister smile. Then he arrived at a car dealership. The saleswoman introduced, "Sir, this car would be perfect for you." Chu Qing was speechless. What the heck? A bright red beetle. A miniature one, at that. He scratched his head, cleared his throat, and asked, "Are there any masculine more feminine cars? Let me take a look." After much consideration, Chu Qing finally bought a black Porsche. "I'll take this one." "Okay. I'll take care of the paperwork for you." While Chu Qing was inspecting the vehicle, the 2 sales assistants behind him were discussing. "A boy. Buying this kind of car. And he's so handsome. Maybe he's a young master, kept by some rich woman, but he seems underage." Rich women these days are really something. They don't even let young, pretty boys go. Chu Qing was completely speechless. Damn it. If a guy has a bag, he's being kept. What kind of ridiculous prejudice is this? In the evening, Chu Qing drove a car wearing a new farmer's uniform, and arrived at a famous hot pot restaurant in Jinmen. Looking at the 4 big characters, Jinmen Haiho, Chu Qing silently thought, "Back to the old place. Last time, I had a meal here with Jiayu." Feeling nostalgic, he directly went to Baoxiang. He watched the girl eating meat, drinking J, and teasing the boys. Chu Qing slapped his forehead, looking speechless. "Stay calm. You'll get used to it." Then he sat down next to Teng Zian and asked, "Why haven't I seen Lin Wanner? She invited me here. Why isn't she here herself, though? How would I know about her matters?" Teng Zian replied curtly, giving a reminder. "But by coming here like this, Zhuobuchuan will be in big trouble. Just now, he was fighting with everyone. He said you'd definitely wear the school uniform today. If he loses, he'll cover everyone's food expenses for a week." "Is his brain frozen?" Chu Qing asked in confusion. "I ran into him when I was buying clothes. He was talking like that." At that moment, 2 little kids were. Zhuobuchuan muttered to himself, "What are you looking at?" After hearing that, Zhuobuchuan immediately Looked like he wanted to beat up Chu Qing. Why is that school hunk so shy? Just now, the extremely handsome male lead, Chu Qing, arrived at the class reunion. As soon as he entered the private room, the disagreeable Zhuo Buchuan looked like he wanted to fight. School hunk, Tang Ziyan explained. I just bet with everyone that you would definitely wear your school uniform today. If he lost, he'd treat everyone to a week's worth of meals. Is he crazy? Chu Qing said in puzzlement. I even ran into him when I was buying clothes. He still plays this kind of trick. Tang Ziyan said lightly to Fu. He probably thinks you can't afford it. Chu Qing wasn't happy to hear that. He added fuel to the fire and said, Zhuo Buchuan, I heard you're treating everyone to a week's worth of meals. Don't forget about my share. Zhuo Bugan, with a very magnanimous air, said, Of course, I willingly admit defeat. Everyone present. The cost of meals in the cafeteria next week is all on me. These words caused a cheer from the students below. Zhuo Buchuan, who made a large sum of money, seems to be bleeding from every pore. Tang Ziyan whispered. He's very clever. Without arousing suspicion, he narrowed the search down to the school cafeteria. However, feeding so many people for a week isn't a small amount. Chu Qing glanced at Zhuo Buchuan and said, This is shooting oneself in the foot. After a while, when everyone had almost finished eating, Zhuo Buchuan held up his juice and said, I have an announcement to make. Our number 1 middle school is going to co-host the spring sports meet with number 2 middle school. I'm planning to form a men's basketball team. Some boys have already signed up. Chu Qing, I heard you're decent at playing basketball. Why not join my team? Chu Qing shook his head and said, Not interested. Zhuo Buchuan hadn't spoken yet, but Tang Ziyan was already annoyed. You said Chu Qing is decent at basketball, but he beat me. You mean I can't play basketball? Zhuo Buchuan waved his hand repeatedly, hesitating. Tang Ziyan directly interrupted him and continued. I have no objections to forming a men's basketball team, but the competition concerns the school's honor. I don't care what conflicts you two have. Put them aside for now. You are only allowed to win. Don't lose. Did you hear me? Zhuo Buchuan said with a smile. I'm fine. But what about Chu Qing? Tang Ziyan looked at the indifferent Chu Qing and raised an eyebrow, asking, What do you think? Chu Qing picked up a piece of meat and said, I think it's just right. Come on, open your mouth. Tang Ziyan was momentarily stunned, then he let out a light snort. A hint of concern appeared on his face. He then leaned forward and swallowed the meat. Zhuo Buchuan watched this scene, nearly exploding with anger. Damn it. At this moment, Tang Ziyan changed his tone and asked, Don't you want to join the basketball team? If you want me to join, I'll join. Chu Qing chuckled. But I have one condition. You let me kiss you. Tang Ziyan was startled. Then Ling stepped forward and said, Is this all you've got? How about a French kiss? Chu Qing teased, lifting her chin. Okay, but it won't be you kissing me. It'll be me kissing you. Close your eyes. Tang Ziyan closed her eyes immediately after hearing this. She looked like a flower waiting to be picked. Looking at Tang Ziyan's shy appearance, Chu Qing lightly touched her lips with his finger. Tang Ziyan thought he had kissed her. She opened her eyes and said with a smile, So this means you agree. You must win when the time comes. There's a special reward. At this moment, continuous sounds of teasing echoed around. Tang Ziyan, the school beauty, you've got her now. You have to treat us. You two are together. Treat us. Treat us. Tang Ziyan immediately said upon hearing this. No problem. You guys want to go to a... Before she could finish, Chu Qing interrupted her and said, It was I who took the initiative to pursue Tang Ziyan back then. I'll pay for this meal. Afterward, let's all go have dessert. There's a Western restaurant nearby. The reputation is pretty good. Once these words were spoken, the students below cheered again. The campus beauty is straightforward. No wonder Ziyan from our class looks down on everyone. She only has eyes for you. Tang Ziyan said with a hint of worry, softly. How can I let you treat me? Chu Qing, hearing this, rubbed her head and said, What? Afraid I'll make a fool of myself? Don't worry. You're my friend. How could I let you lose face? Tang Ziyan pinched his face and said, Why are boys more concerned about face than girls? Watching Chu Qing and Tang Ziyan surrounded by classmates, Zhuo Buchuan was completely furious. He gnashed his teeth and muttered to himself, This reunion was organized by me. I should be the main character. Chu Qing, just you wait. What do you do when the woman you like dances for another man? Just now, Chu Qing, the male lead, arrived at the Western restaurant with many classmates. Tang Zian exclaimed in surprise. The desserts here are really good. At this time, Zhuo Buchuan beside her seemed to have seen something and rushed over. However, Lin Wanner, who had just arrived, completely ignored him, and greeted Chu Qing, coming to his side. Chu Qing said with a smile, clearly irritated, Lin Wanner, you're too unreliable. You tricked me into coming here, and now you stand me up. Lin Wanner explained. I can't help it. I was rushing to get here, after all. Chu Qing curiously asked upon hearing this. Have you signed with a company? Are you preparing to debut? Zhuo Buchuan looked at the scene, feeling like he was about to explode. At this moment, a classmate shouted, Everyone! The pianist is not here today. Shall we have Zhuo Buchuan play a song for everyone instead? As soon as these words were spoken, it caused a wave of cheers from the students below. Zhuo Buchuan, who couldn't refuse such kind intentions, stepped forward and said, I barely passed the grade 6 piano exam. An RD isn't much, but if Lin Wanner is willing to dance along, then it will be more interesting. Lin Xiaowan smiled and said upon hearing this, all right, no problem. Then, he pointed at Chu Qing and said, this dance today, I dedicate it to my best friend. As soon as he said this, the students below cheered again. Chu Qing is so lucky, pampered by two goddesses. Although we have no talents, Hein is also your servant beneath your pants. Chu Qing was helpless. Zhuo Buchuan, with a dark expression, sat by the piano. As the melodious sound flowed from his fingers, in sync with Lin Xiaowan's graceful dance, everyone's attention was completely drawn in. Chu Qing praised. This guy's piano playing is pretty good. Tang Zian said with a smirk. Don't you think his dancing is even better? Chu Qing looked at her upon hearing this and teased. Tang Damen. Sounds like you're jealous. Tang Zian said huffily. What are you looking at me for?